Good evening. I call to order the open session of the Monday, July 13th, Kent County Board of Education meeting. I am looking for a motion to approve the agenda.
I'll make a motion.
Mr. Rhodes has made the motion. Is there a second?
I'll second.
Ms. McKenzie's made the second. Is there any discussion? Call for the vote. All in favor?
Aye.
It's 4-0, Ms. Manley. All righty, I am looking for a motion to go into closed session for the following reasons. Applicants for new hires, resignations, volunteers, transfers, extra pay for extra duty, and any other personal matters. The reason for this is public discussion of applicants and employee names and personal information could discourage people from working for the board and contains sensitive and personal biographical information. Personnel information is protected from disclosure under the MPIA. The second reason for going into closed session is to obtain legal advice from counsel regarding advice on the U.S. Supreme Court's ruling in West Virginia versus BPJ, Maryland Supreme Court ruling in what's known as the Strum case. The reason for going into closed session is the substance of the discussion is protected by attorney-client privilege. A third reason for going into closed session is to consult with our counsel to obtain update on pending litigation. The reason for this is the substance of discussion is protected again by attorney-client privilege. And finally, the reason for going into closed session is discussion of negotiations with Kent County Public School bargaining units. The reason for this is to maintain the integrity of the collective bargaining process. So for those reasons, I'm looking for a motion to go into closed session.
I'll make that.
Ms. Dorsey has made the motion. Is there a second?
I'll second.
Ms. McKenzie's made the second. Is there any discussion? I call for the vote. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. All righty, we're going to go, the motion passes 4-0. Ms. Manley, we're going to go into closed session. We will resume our open session at 6:30. 13th, 2026, Kent County Board of Education meeting. First thing I'm going to do is report on closed session. In closed session was our legal counsel, Mr. Costas, our new, I don't know if it's a supervisor or a director.
Director.
Director of Human Resources, Dr. Holloway, the 5 members of the board, Ms. Manley, Dr. McComas, and one of Mr. Costa's associates from PK Law. We talked about collective bargaining update, personnel, legal advice. No action was taken. The next thing we're going to do is I want to welcome our new student member of the board. This is the first meeting for Eamon, who's a rising senior at Kent County High School, and your first action is to lead us in the Pledge of Allegiance. All righty.
I pledge allegiance
to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
All righty. Dr. McComas. Swear in, Ms. Manley, did you have a question?
I have it. That's what I ran back over. Yes. So, Eamon, let's walk on down there.
Yeah, I keep saying Eamon. Is it Eamon? How do I pronounce it? Eamon. All righty. Amen. Amen. I got you. Okay. I got you.
Bring Jesus, you bring me.
Yeah. Will you also answer to Scar and SpongeBob?
SpongeBob starts fast.
He's a theater guy as well. So, all righty. So we've got 6 items on our consent agenda. I will be looking for a motion to approve the consent agenda, which includes approval of the minutes of the June 8th Board of Education meeting, the minutes of the June 15th Board of Education meeting, donation approval, policy series update, membership of the Citizens Advisory Committee, and personnel actions.
Make a motion to approve.
All righty, Mr. Queens made the motion. Is there a second?
I'll second.
Ms. McKenzie's made the second. Is there any discussion? I call for the vote. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Mr. Lindsay, you can vote on everything but personnel, so,
Aye.
all righty. It's unanimous. Thank you very much. Ms. Manley, did anyone sign up for public participation? All righty. We will move on to Dr. McComas.
So I'm just, I want to take a moment as part of my report to recognize we have Mr. Michael O'Brien, who will be our assistant superintendent beginning September 2nd, once he's eligible to begin. So if you just stand up, Mr. O'Brien, and I don't know if you want to say a few words or not.
Yes, welcome
Thank
to
you.
KCPS.
Thank you, everyone, since that was really just recognizing someone in personnel action. Ratification of our K-CASA negotiated agreement. I want to invite everyone forward over to the signing table. So if we could get President McGee, myself, thank you, Miss Dr. Marcosian, for representing the Administrators Association. Oh, you want to come back? Thank you for joining us this evening for that. Yep. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you.
Dr.
Um,
No, go ahead.
Yes, in addition to that, we have our meet and confer contracts. So we had a number of personnel positions that were not certified administrators in our administrators union. And so we have separated them out this year. This has been a process. And so I have those contracts that if I could have the president sign at the end of today's meeting. Also, one of those
You
is
just
our.
need President sign or do we all need to
Well, actually,
sign?
if I could get all the board members to sign before you leave today. And we will get that meet and confer agreement posted. And then in addition, we have our radio station manager who is a teacher who way back when they put the teacher position in the administrators union. We have also worked with the administrators union to get that position back in the teachers union. And so there is an MOU on that as well. So I just wanted to put all that as, because that was all connected to,
What we just,
yeah, why we're finally finalizing the administrators union for the year, negotiations for the year. So thank you for that. Next part of superintendent's report is the attendance monitoring. I want to thank Mr. Poor for working on that for me at the last minute here. So as of our last day of school, our system-wide average for attendance this past year was 94.1%, which meets the state requirement. The excellent news with that is up 1.82% from the previous year where we did not meet the standard. So first time in a number of years that we as a whole system met that state expectation. So that was positive news. And in August, I will not bring forward an attendance report, but I may bring a report on summer learning program. And then we will begin next year monitoring attendance again. And again, I just want to do a shout out. Our middle school last year had 97% attendance, the highest attendance in the whole school system. So
outstanding.
Do you think it's accurate to say, which I think it is, that one of the reasons that our attendance has improved, was some real intentional work by the leadership at both the middle school and the high school?
absolutely, absolutely. I know Ms. Hemster is with us and we talked a lot. The schools are, in every school, we are a community school. And in every community school plan is a focus on attendance and a reduction of chronic absenteeism. And so each school has very intentionally developed attendance incentive programs, and they are yielding results. The community schools facilitators are really diligently working to support that process and reaching out to families when an attendance issue emerges to find out what are those barriers and challenges and how do we leverage the community schools resources and the school system supports to help that family overcome whatever barrier or challenge they're having.
Question, Dr. McComas, where does the funding to support our community schools come from?
That comes from, that is embedded in blueprint legislation, and it flows to us through the normal operating budget. It's important to keep in mind that they are often referred to as the concentration of poverty funds. While they flow from the state through the local county operating system to our budget for our work, they function as restricted. So they function like a grant, meaning we can only use those funds for community schools purposes.
Yes.
I, as superintendent, do not have statutory authority to use that money for anything other than for which the state has designated it. But it does, in fact, it is part of the operating budget.
From the blueprint.
Yes.
Just sometimes want to point out some of the good things that happen with the blueprint, because I know we all up here can name a bunch of things that go wrong with it, but this is one of the things that help us get the necessary resources to improve attendance, so it's a good thing.
Yes, thank you. And I'll just add one more thing to your point, Mr. Queen, is that evidence is emerging stronger and stronger every year that where community schools go in, attendance and academics improve and behaviors improve as well. So we are the one state in the nation that really has invested as much in community schools as a model, and it's yielding strong support for schools and improved achievement and attendance and improved behaviors as well. So. Okay, so that really concludes my superintendent's report. You know, we are in the summer months. Our summer programs have kicked off last week, and so we are actively in the middle of that, and I look forward in August to bring you an update of that. I will also in August bring you, I may wait till September for that, an update on how many meals. Our food service program continues to offer free meals to families throughout the summer, and Ms. Knoll and her team are passionate and committed, and so we'll bring you the data on how many meals were served throughout the summertime as well. That concludes this portion of the superintendent's report.
All righty. Move on to education. Cell phone policy.
Yes, so thank you. I am bringing forward, this is really the second read on this. Just a recap for anybody who may not be familiar, and you're just tuning into the BAT channel. The state of Maryland this year passed in legislation House Bill 525, requiring every school system to implement a phone-free day, essentially, during the academic day. School systems have until the fall of 2027 to implement. So school systems are not required this next school year to implement, but must no later than the following year implement. We were already on our own Kent County journey towards creating a learning-focused, phone-free environment. We focused this year extensively on surveying parents and then working with our middle school because we know the middle school is a cornerstone of our strategic plan and is where we need to, our data provides us clear evidence that we need to strengthen that learning environment. And so next year, we will be piloting at the middle school the Yonder pouches for our middle schools. And I want to thank our school administration for working with me. And I know we made some networks with some other schools on the Eastern Shore who have been implementing Yonder pouches in Dorchester County. And we were going to go during the summer to meet with their administrative team to just learn some of the little things that you might not think of when you're new to implementing. So we look forward to that. What I will do this next year is I will be working with Ms. Hemstetter and the high school stakeholders to develop what does an effective implementation plan look like at the high school for implementation in time to meet the requirement of the House bill. I know I just am clicking through real fast, but for anyone, again, this journey of where the state has been, they created a task force at MSDE, and in this task force, they looked into best practices and research and established recommendations and best practices. The House bill was passed this spring in Annapolis. Here's what we have done over the last year around our own journey here in Kent County. And here's our implementation plan of what I just said, implementing the Yonder pouches at the middle school for this upcoming school year. Next year, we'll be working with the high school to develop what does an effective plan look like for that context, given that we have high school students who come and go throughout the school day and have individualized plans, and so implementation is a little bit more complex. And so I am asking for the board to, yes, sure.
So I know that the legislation and all the discussion has been centered around student use of cell phones. Or Larry about staff use of phones.
Yeah, that will be something that we will need to work with our union on.
Okay.
You know, and I know we all believe in leading by example, right? This idea that we as educators are role models in everything we do, say, and how we act. There are tools that many of our educators use on their cell phone, like Class Dojo, that helps with incentive programs. So it's a little bit more.
I know it's problematic. It's just that, like you said, we want to model the best behavior, and I you know, I don't want to unfairly paint all the staff, but I think we all anecdotally know of at least one staff member who's probably using their cell phone when they shouldn't be.
Right,
So
right,
that-
right.
I just kind of wish that we could sort of draw a
Yeah.
line in the sand and say, you know, don't cross this line.
Right, right. Well, I would like to do that with all of us, right? I mean, and you know, just parents alone, 50% of almost 50% of our parents felt their students should still
I
be able
know,
to have
I
it.
know,
So
you
it
know.
is a challenging topic across the board. This would be part of work conditions, so we have to work with our union
gotcha.
around what
Okay,
are
yeah.
best practices and expectations for adults, given that adults are adults and they're not minors, right?
Right.
So, but I hear you, and as much
Well,
as
and I know so much of the cell phone is in addition to being distracting to classroom instruction, there's the whole social media and all that jazz, and adults can do that too. It's just that it's sometimes difficult to say to students, do what I say and not what I do. You know, I just
Oh.
don't want us to be hypocrites.
yes, well, I agree that students are keen observers of double standards.
Yeah.
I also know students are able to understand differential things based on clear reasons, right? They can understand when something is a legitimate difference as opposed to just arbitrary double standards. And so again, we have to work with our union.
You know, I
on
get
that.
it. I get it. I just
But I do
wanted
hear
to
you.
Yeah, 'cause-
acknowledge that it could be an issue because we don't want kids coming home and saying, I can't have my cell phone, but this such and such had hers out.
My daughter already said it to me last week when I told them we was discussing this. She
Yeah.
said that my teacher can use it, but I can't. I tried your routine. I said, you know, some teachers needed to be in contact with other teachers and personnel in the building. I ain't gonna say which kid, but we all can guess if you know my children. He said, well, what's to stop the part-time substitute sitting in there not engaged with kids being on their phone? So I do see your point, but it's hard to govern adults like that. I think it would be kind of unfair.
Well, I do think, again, kids understand when somebody's doing a double standard and it's arbitrary and unfair. Kids recognize that in a heartbeat. They also recognize that there are legitimate reasons for some people to have access to things
Agreed.
for appropriate reasons. I don't want to undercut our kids, and I don't want to undercut our adults.
I don't either.
Yeah.
I guess my whole point to acknowledge that that's a consideration.
Because it's gonna come up.
Mhm.
It's gonna
Yeah.
come.
Well, I would agree that it is important, but it is a process that needs to be worked through our unions, right? Because we need, in order for our adults to be good stewards and role models, they too have to work through their process and
Yeah.
come to agreement around time and place appropriate. What is time and place appropriate?
This pilot
and I don't mean-
program at the middle school is a great way to start to find out with her.
Mhm. Hence why I use the term pilot. Because we will learn. We will learn. We will learn things at work. We will make mistakes. We'll learn how to correct those mistakes, and that will position us to be wiser for our work at the high school the following year.
All righty. Well, so the administrator, is there any other comment?
I just think that we should pay close attention because just because people discipline it. And I do believe that since had permitted children to bring gotten in a habit of it. And we all know as even adults, cell phones can be addicted. There's something that it seems all hard for us to put down.
Yep.
And sometimes I don't think it's a whole lot different between adults. We just may not be as irresponsible at and different things like that, but we still do too much. And so I do think it should be, and make sure it's not a kill. I do wish that they could use you can something happens, pull it out, but there's a difference between and then constantly picking it up, because that's another thing, constantly picking it up. And to be truthful, nowadays the cell phone takes a lot away from personal with people, one-on-one. It does. So if it does that, even when we're maybe out to dinner, then it can do it.
Agreed. Thank you, Mr. Dorsey.
Real quick, I would like to hear Eamon point of view as a student. Phone policy.
I think what you prepared is completely fair. I got to actually speak to you about it when you were constructing it with a bunch of other students. So when I'm hearing you guys talk about double standards and things like that, I think students are a lot more cognizant of when and where is the right place to use the phone and when. And I think everyone knows there's a time to work and there's a time to play, and not everyone's schedules line up. So I think this is completely fair. I only have one question about this.
Sure.
I noticed that it says, during the academic school day, there's a restriction. Does that include it in the hallways or in the lunchroom?
It does. Under the new state law, and I think the policy is posted there, and if it's not,
Bell to bell.
it's in the proofs, bell to bell. So essentially from the opening bell for homeroom to the dismissal bell at the end of the day is how the state law is written. The exceptions are for students who have a medical need. You know how there's individuals, diabetes
Diabetic.
monitoring for health reasons. If there is medical or emergency type, there are certain conditions that are outlined in the law. Also, trying to think without
Part of
having
your instruction
IEP.
program.
yeah,
Yeah.
part of your IEP.
Construction,
504.
medical,
Yeah,
one more.
I see it.
Caregiver.
Yeah, they're all right
Yes.
If you're a
here.
caregiver,
Yeah, all makes sense to me. I think this is a completely fair student use policy. I like how you incorporated other students. And I think you're very open with the fact that this is restricted because every year the General Assembly puts a phone bill. They always do. So it was going to happen eventually. I think this is probably the best way to go about it. I think teachers have a lot of freedom.
well, and the good thing is, it doesn't become law for another year, so this
Yeah.
gives us a chance to iron out some wrinkles for ourselves.
Yep, yep. And we will, Eamon, I'm going to need your support in recircling up that high school group that I met with that day so that we can really get into what will be feasible or not for students in grades 9 to 12, given internships and, all the comings and goings. It's a lot different when middle schools, they come to school, they're there.
Yeah, for sure. And I was also wondering about for the middle school and even younger, will there be any sort of education on phone use affects, right? Their brains and just their
Mhm.
development in general.
That is something that we need to do. I mean, it's all part of a digital citizenship curriculum that we need to develop. I did when I met with the sixth grade, the middle school had an evening orientation for incoming sixth graders and their parents. I did take the opportunity to talk to all of the parents and students who were there that evening, and I provided parents with resources from the Cook Center for Human Connection, Common Sense Media, and Wait Till 8th as another parent resource to help parents think about if they're choosing to give their child a cell phone, what are some of the things that they need to think through before they make that decision to give their child a phone? What are some sort of a contract between a parent and a child around appropriate use of that technology? And just resources for parents around, we know increased access to social media, for example, it has really driven up anxiety and depression among young people. What to do if you see your child exhibiting those struggles. And so we're really trying to also educate parents in this process as well. So your point is well taken.
Yeah, students definitely should know, and I think it would definitely add to the point. Between that, there might be a little bit of a double standard if a teacher's on their phone, but I think a student can hold their chest high and say, "Well, I know I'm not supposed to be. I learned about it in 5th grade." Getting that education as early as possible. That's all I have to add.
Alrighty, the administration recommends approval of the cell phone policy as presented. I am looking for a motion.
I'll make a motion to approve.
Ms. McKenzie made the motion. Second?
I second.
Queens made the second. Any more discussion? Call for the vote. All in favor?
Aye.
Mr. Lindsay?
Aye.
Alrighty, it's unanimous.
Thank you.
Alrighty, moving on. Volunteer procedure update.
Okay, great. I'm going to ask Ms. Pledger, Nikel Pledger is our volunteer coordinator. For those of you, as she's coming up to the podium, I'll just remind everyone, through the generous support of a philanthropic donor, we were able to fund a part-time volunteer coordinator. It took us a little while to find her and get her on board, and I think you started, was it February, March? And so she has an extensive background with volunteers in a lot of different ways. And in the short period of time she's been working with us, she really has conducted a big survey of where we are. As you may recall, when I first came to Kent County and we did our community conversations, something that came up again and again to me was our community is interested and committed in volunteering in our schools. And of course, on the heels of the pandemic, many school systems had reduced the amount of volunteers in their buildings because of that whole pandemic. And so this is really an effort to revitalize and continue to grow and nurture our volunteer program in our schools. So I'm going to hand it over to Nicole, and she's going to walk us through what she's discovered, our vision for moving forward, and where we are.
All right. Good evening. Thank you for allowing me to provide this update. I've gone through an assessment with all 5 of our schools and interviewed principals, secretaries, community school specialists, family coordinators in our Judy centers, and even our district staff to learn what the big picture and where our volunteers were and how they were being implemented to understand what was working in Kent County Public Schools. And so just a brief overview of where I want to go over tonight, just a brief overview of what we learned, what procedures we're kind of updating or better outlining for what we have, and then also what has been developed to improve the volunteer experience overall for all of them. Really quick, we all know why volunteering matters, I'm sure, but when I was hired and did the volunteer needs assessment, it was interesting to show that through each school, all 5 schools, no matter the age or the demographic that was there, the wonderful community support still showed through at each of our schools, which means Kent County honestly really does support our schools and our students here. And it matters to our schools to enhance the school culture, supporting our students, and strengthening our diverse connections. That is through our community and through our curriculum, meaning we have organizations that want to enhance the curriculum for our students and put more hands-on education into what they're learning, into what they can use in real life. And allowing that diverse connection to grow is really important. So to kind of give you an idea of where we have volunteers currently at our schools, every school is a little different. We don't have every single school have each one of these, but through tutors, parent supports, through field trips or class parties, or organizational partnerships to, like I said, enhance our curriculum, each of our schools have some type of volunteer support. However, in learning and our needs assessment, our applications, our onboarding, or even tracking, our communication to our volunteers, even identifying what type of volunteer it is, and the trainings from building to building varied so much that there was an inconsistency and gave it a harder time for our volunteers to enjoy, or created the inefficiencies to not have them accurately brought on and into our schools. However, everyone is in agreement that they want more support in the volunteers, but it's about building the foundation. And I do want to also recognize really quick with this graph that although they haven't been identified the best or haven't always been processed through HR correctly, we have had volunteers in our schools. This is very bare minimum data. There hasn't been a collection of, like I said, there was no really collection of what volunteer hours or who was supporting our schools, but this is through our applications and understanding with our community school specialists the impact we did have. And so this is a raw, very raw data, but somewhere to start for Kent County, what impact we do have. This is with whether it's parents, community members, private organizations supporting our students. We have about 100 to 200 in our schools supporting volunteers. When you think about 5 schools only, that's a good number impacting our schools through volunteer. The other one, the pie graph on the right-hand side, shows the returning amount of volunteers. We have some schools that obviously have a really good return rate and some that don't. But the fact that we have volunteers that are returning year after year shows that they have a buy-in, they support the student success, and that they're there. Again, this is just 2 years, so keep it minimal, but I wanted to at least show you that we do have some number and our community is there.
And I'll let you go real quick. The data 2 years, but you started in February?
Yes.
Yes, I went and collected everything that the schools and HR had in 2024 to digitize so that I could
Understood.
pull
Thank
that.
I just also want to take a moment, one, for your retro analysis for us, and two, even if you look just from 24 to 25, we overall are seeing an increase in volunteers, right? In some cases, it's a little bit more dramatic, but I mean, and we intentionally took the names off the schools and just used numbers because I don't want this to be, this is not about shaming a school that doesn't have strong volunteerism yet, right? But it is about recognizing what our patterns are and the fact that we have already begun to expand the number of volunteers in our school systems in just 2 years, and we'll continue over time to track this data.
The goal really in learning about the needs assessment and also by pulling the data from 24, 25, and 25 and 26, I'm not trying to change what's working, but I do want to hope that there's some consistency to allow volunteers to come in and support our schools while also maintaining the school's flexibility because each school does operate a little differently. Kent County is, as I'm learning, a very larger county with schools spread out. And so one school may have different opportunities than another. And so we do want to keep that in mind when encouraging volunteers to come. And it was thought about when creating some of these procedures moving forward. So from our needs assessment, the actions that were prioritized were creating a standardized district process with volunteer identification and the application process. We are creating a centralized system to track, train, and onboard all volunteers. We want to be intentional about the recognition and communication that we're having with our volunteers, making sure that that our schools are hearing from our district office and that the schools are talking to our volunteers and that our volunteers obviously feel part of the team. And lastly, the opportunity to expand our volunteer engagement and the equity across the community and our curriculum for students. The exciting part is, again, that every school had the desire to grow our volunteers' involvement once these are in place. Yes.
Mikhail, right?
Mikhail.
Mikhail,
Mhm.
question. Not you personally, but for the process. What is the definition of equity and diversity? Because those two words can be kind of miscrewed as just color-based sometimes, and not talking about, all facets of life, maybe farmers, watermen, small business owners, young, old. So what do we mean, Kent County Public School System, when we say access and equity and the word diversity?
Yeah, so one of the big things on access is, again, we have schools that are across the board, right? Not to name specific schools, but we have schools that are closer to a college that allow a lot more volunteer impact compared to one that's, maybe
Or
not
remote.
near any college.
Yeah.
And so we want to work on building something that would allow another school to have that same access of support. Because, if you have a recess that has individual college students, a basketball team that's coming to play with students for a recess, and then you have a school that's not receiving any recess support, not exactly fair to all of the students at Kent County. The other thing is that diversity of community is a couple of the schools spoke of being having access in bilingual. Right now, a lot of our volunteers may not be in both languages, but allowing that opportunity to have that. So when we have family engagement nights, when we have community organizations there, we can have volunteers so that everyone can access that no matter their background in language. And then another last example, building that equity and diversity across the curriculum. I'm going to give the example of the middle school right now. They just started this in the spring, and it was in part of their CTE program. They have an after-school program where they brought in individuals who have different jobs. So one is cosmetology and one is chef. Those aren't your standard things that you would learn in a curriculum setting, but we found different ethnicities to help support those areas and relate to the students in that way for those jobs seeking, but also the students in the after-school programs now can apply what they're learning in schools across the curriculum with someone that they may relate to more in a job that actually may interest them. So that's just an example that has grown.
Thank you.
To kind of share where we are right now, because I did do this assessment in February and in March, and Dan Hutchins and I worked between April and May to kind of get this going, and it's been a little bit. I do want to update you where we are in the recommendations after our needs assessment. We have currently updated the volunteer procedure, which was attached in the agenda. We have improved our application to make it more standardized, but also grab the correct information that we need. We've standardized the process in hopefully having our schools submit them correctly. We have clearly identified our volunteer roles and working on a handbook for volunteers and a volunteer training that was also lacking. I'm going to jump really quick to the procedure updates as it kind of talks about the recommendations and just update you of the procedure 429 that were updates. The markings are in red, and Dan and I went back a couple times back and forth if you see some things that were deleted or reworded. The big things that were improved in this procedure update is that we have clear volunteer categories, and that is under where it says Tier 1 volunteer. They volunteer at regular activities. Tier 2 is a volunteer at daily or weekly or overnight activities. And then we have created a one-time exception volunteer or volunteer only one time during the school year. And to kind of give you an understanding that this is individuals who come and do like a guest reader, or they're coming for a career day presentation, or they're coming just for a one-day science fair. This would allow the application process to go quickly and more streamlined for those one-time volunteers, but we also capture those people that are coming in, giving time to our students, which right now some schools are doing and some schools aren't, so we're missing that information. Also, the other big change is that we are increasing, I should say, our Tier 2 volunteer definition to include out of county field trips. So if there is a field trip and that needs chaperones outside of our county, they will now be established as a Tier 2, which means they will be background and have the fingerprinting and CJIS train or background check that all Tier 2s will require, because they will essentially be on a drive for more than an hour or two with students on a bus that, maybe not always have the correct supervision. So really quick to summarize, our Tier 1s are individuals that will be supervised by a KCPS employee at all times. A Tier 2 will still be supervised by a KCPS employee, but they may not have eyes every second, every day. And then our one-time exceptions are those individuals who come in from the community. We can capture their information that they're donating time to our students through one-time exceptions, meaning they can only help one time in the school year. If they do it more, they have to fill out a different application. The other large change in our procedure is the last page. Everything else just kind of has verbiage updates, making sure that the schools understand what HR's responsibilities are in processing them and what it's responsible for the schools. The last thing clearly defines what each volunteer is. It's what I call a volunteer summary. It says what the volunteer categories are, and it says what's required. The annual volunteer application is required for any type of volunteer that comes in, whether it's a one-time, a Tier 1, Tier 2, a college student, or anything like that. And then it also shows what fingerprinting is required, any child protective services clearance that may be required, or any annual training that may be required. So hopefully that gives our school staff a clear picture of what and who is what and what they need. So, if you have a family member that comes in and goes, oh, I want to go on the zoo trip, and it's 5 days away, well, that's a zoo trip outside of our county, and you'll need to be a Tier 2, and it clearly defines everything that a Tier 2 would need. It also gives the opportunity for parents to be able to see what's required to come into the schools. So really quick. And then the other thing that we talked about was providing a handbook for support for our students or for our volunteers, and that has also been attached to the agenda as a draft. It's in very rough draft forms. We didn't have one, so I've done some research to gather the most up-to-date information, and this is where we're at. And the volunteer handbook really includes the responsibilities, the guidelines and code of conduct of volunteers that we hope to have at Kent County, the opportunities and tips that parents or outside members of our community could have, as well as the overview of the required training. I obviously understand that our volunteers are coming in with busy lives. Everyone is juggling something, and they're really not giving away free time. They're giving us their time, and that is very valuable. And so our goal is to simply ensure every volunteer feels prepared and supported and understands the expectations before working with students. And on the reverse side, I want every staff member to know the boundaries of what a volunteer can help in. And if they feel that they've been overstepped or it's not working, here's the processes that we can do with it and better find a solution between the two of them working together as a team. They are I say it all the time, I really hope that the volunteers and our staff feel like they all have the tools in their toolbox to support a successful student experience with volunteers. With volunteers balancing all of that they do have with their families, caring for loved ones, or managing other countless responsibilities, I want to identify that our volunteers are investing their most valuable resource, their time, in our students. And throughout all of our updates, I've kept that in mind to make sure we have the responsibility to make that time meaningful. And I want them to be successful when they come. If we truly value our volunteers, we're not going to waste anyone's time, our staff, our students, or our volunteers. So to quickly finish, to quickly finish up, we have our long-term goals that came out of our needs assessment. All the individuals I talked to said yes to volunteers. Here's how we'd really like to have them in our schools, but we can't do it without the framework and the foundation to support them coming in. And all of the collective agreement from the assessment was that there's 2 areas to have long-term goals, and it's supporting our community involvement in the schools to enhance our curriculum, as I mentioned, and then also supporting our schools through community events and educational needs with parents or community members or community partners to have the positive outlook that KCPS does have in the community. Lastly, the 3 areas that we saw a reward of volunteers at Kent County Public Schools is, I'm gonna put them all in one sentence, so don't take more of your time, but 1, it builds a stronger community that is connective and supportive of future generations and our students. 2, it enriches our students' learning by connecting our classroom concepts to the lived experiences that they may have. And 3, it helps our school events, initiatives, our daily operations and staff feel supported and operate more effectively and efficiently. And it allows families to feel like they have a place in creating the positive change for their students. As I've worked on this project, I realized that community engagement isn't one person's responsibility. It honestly belongs to all of us, starting from the board, setting the vision, to the leadership at our district, our principals, our teachers, our office staff that they come in contact with, our community partners, parents, volunteers, and including our students that we serve. And I feel like here, Kent County really truly does have an incredible community that wants to support our schools. And these recommendations simply provide a stronger framework to make volunteering easier to understand, more consistent across all schools, safer for our students, and more welcoming to our community. One of the greatest lessons I've learned in working with volunteers over the past decade is that they're, again, choosing their time and talents, and the fact that they want to share it with our students is something, a gift we should never take for granted. If we truly value the time, we won't waste it, and we need to remember that their first experience with our school matters. And every interaction that they have helps shape whether they feel welcomed, appreciated, and eager to return to our students. And don't you want that example around all of our students? Don't you want our students to have an individual who makes them feel valued and can equip them with making a difference in our lives? They see others giving their times. So because of that, every recommendation in this project points to one purpose, and it's helping our students succeed and supporting them in their long terms. Thank you. Happy to answer any other questions.
I had a couple questions. For the background checks, that's for both tier 1 and tier 2. And is that correct?
Yes, and the one-time exception does go through the National Sex Offender background check. So just like every visitor that comes into school, all volunteers would have the National Sex Offender check.
And how often does that occur? Like if someone they go through the background check, would they have to go through it again?
Yes, so so the National Sex Offender technically is done anytime anyone enters our school through the Raptor system we currently have. So anyone that's entering the school should be checked daily or anytime they walk in. So that one is checked daily. The background check is only done annually when the application is turned in, which is why the application is required annually, despite its length. The tier 2 fingerprinting is done at a minimum of every 5 years, as long as they are staying active, which is within 180 days. So if for example, a volunteer coach coaches in football this year and they stay active through the entire season, they don't have to be re-fingerprinted for the cost of $32 again. But say they volunteer in 24, don't do 25, but do 26, they will be required to be fingerprinted because they're not staying active.
Okay. And then once a volunteer submits the application to a specific school,
Mhm.
right? How would they know that it's been approved? Like when, like how,
Yeah, that's a great question. I have two answers for that. I'll tell you the current system. Right now, it has to be signed off by the principal because we do new principal approvals for the volunteers that are in their schools. So the principal signs off and then it comes to HR and we do all the background checks because if the principal doesn't want to volunteer in the school, we'll stop it there and not do the extra steps. But if they do, they send it to HR, we process it, and then we notify their desk. And right now, it is kept in an approved, it's just a spreadsheet of approved volunteers that people can go back and check. This is one thing Dr. McComas and I am working on, though, about digitizing our application and creating a volunteer management system. And being able to go through a system would automate that, so much so that they would be able to fill it out online. It would be a bilingual already document, and it would keep the contact with our volunteers immediately. As soon as their application is processed, they'd get an email. As soon as it's been approved by a principal, they'd get an email. As soon as it is approved on the district level, they would get an email. So that system allows for a lot more communication from a volunteer standpoint for when it's accepted. But right now, we rely on the front desk to support that.
yeah, what do you think the timeline is? I know that takes time to come up.
I'm going to refer to Dr. McComas.
Yeah, so we are in the process of taking on the enhancement to the Raptor system that would help us with the volunteer management system. I foresee next year really being a year that we are standing up some of these new processes and learning from our mistakes. So I would say potentially the spring semester, I'm not sure that we can get that to that level of performance in the next 4 weeks. But we will be continuing to work on this through the fall semester with this idea of, again, we're moving from what has been a very fragmented manual system to a 2026 modern digitized system that has more efficiencies,
Yeah.
both for
All
us
over the-
as a HR function and a school system, but for our volunteers. And so it will take us time to walk that up. Nicole is fantastic, but she is part-time. And so, again, these things take time. But we are looking to stand these up as quickly as we can because as she has the evidence in front of us, we know that our community they are eager to support. They are supporting and they are eager to expand. One of the things I'm looking forward to with the enhancements is being able to share with you this time next year hours. How many hours are our community members dedicating to support our young people?
Like thousands.
Right. And then imagine if we were to even attempt to quantify that financially, right?
Yeah.
I mean, when we start talking about people giving of their time, that equates to investment,
There's
right?
an hourly rate
In
by the
our
state.
community. So I look forward to as we've now level set, right? We kind of came in, it was all over the board. I also want to give a shout out to Principal Hemster because I know she was a school that had a volunteer manual that really helped us start a foundation for this manual. So I just want to make sure we acknowledge you. But so we've just really level set here. And now it's about taking it up. So I'm sorry I can't have it in time for 5 weeks from now, but we aren't taking our foot off the gas. We're just building it as we go.
It is. I'm encouraged just because I've experienced the frustration, applications that get lost like that. So it's just, I know it'll come and that's great and it's just exciting.
Yeah, yeah.
I mean, that's
Well, I
something like-
appreciate,
No, go ahead, finish.
no, I was just going to say, I appreciate your question and I appreciate the board's support in this because as we know, we are working to ensure that our community's perception and understanding of who we are as a school system is accurate.
Correct.
Right? And we know every volunteer who comes in and supports our students and has a positive experience in doing so then becomes an ambassador. And there's nothing like word of mouth as a form of promotion. And so that's why I personally take this volunteer initiative very seriously. It's much greater impact on our community and our school system than at first blush, right?
Agreed.
And so these become tremendous advocates. And I know we have volunteers here on our board. Our president volunteers through the Character Counts program, right? So it's a game changer for us if we understand the impact. And and thank you. And my goal is to make it easy and efficient for all parties involved. I know firsthand as a principal, if principals are juggling a multitude of things at any given minute, and they want volunteers, but they also need to have the infrastructure that supports that without
Correct.
being singularly dependent on the principal. And so we're very excited to build a system infrastructure and really recognizing the importance of our community schools facilitators as being boots on the ground to help that process. That was not in place a number of years ago. So.
Good to see it being addressed. Can we get a follow-up presentation after winter break then?
Of course, we're happy to bring forward updates as we make progress.
Yes, and I will say, to kind of also answer the timeline question, we did stick within systems that Kent County already has. So again, the one we're looking at is Raptor, which every parent, any visitor that goes to our school is already in towards the system. So there will be some education for parents around that, but it is at least a system that we're already using in our offices and to scan already. So
I
Thank you,
just
guys.
want to say that I'm blown away by your presentation and the amount of organization and all the legwork that you've done. Having a volunteer coordinator has been a priority for a couple of, well, more than just a couple of years. We've just never been able to afford it, and we've had a generous benefactor apparently make that possible. And it brings to light really how important it is. One of the perceptions in the community, because we haven't been able to be organized, we haven't had somebody that could do this, because obviously it's a labor intensive and it's a very, it's a lot to do what you're doing. And because we haven't been able to be organized and, one school's doing it one way, another school's doing it in another way, the perception in the community was our schools don't want the community in their schools,
Correct.
which is not the truth. We just couldn't figure out how to do it, quote
Well-
unquote, the right way. And so I'm, again, just absolutely blown away by all the work you've already done. And I think you're going to be embraced by, they're probably going to be literally lining up at the doors because they want to
Structure.
I'm asked all the time, how can I volunteer? What can I do for the schools? So I just want to say, as someone who's been around the block for a very long time and have had this a priority, I'm glad that we've actually been able to bring it to fruition. So thank you very much.
thank you.
Great.
Well done. Thank you. Thank you, board, for the support around it.
And I like actually her 3 explanations for equity and diversity.
Right. I think for us, language, we really need to expand our capability around bilingual
Yeah.
supports, and that's a really good example.
Great.
So our next update here is really an information update on student service learning, and we have Dr. Markosian has stepped up to the platform to share with us the updates.
Absolutely. Good evening. So the 2026 revisions to the KCPS procedure 625 were made primarily to align with the district's service learning procedures to the Maryland State Department of Education's updated 2026 service learning guidance, terminology, and also for organizational structures to our procedure. So updates primarily include incorporating MSD's revised language surrounding the 3 core components of service learning. The terminology is academic preparation, service action, and structured reflection involved in service learning, as well as the 7 best practices of service learning. The terminology was also updated by MSDE. While clarifying district procedures for embedded projects, teacher-created projects, and independent service learning experiences, we updated all of those forms. We have updated our website, and we're going to do training for community partners that students might have outreach to, as well as our service learning contacts in each school. We will have the additional revisions improved consistency with current KCPS practices, providing clear guidance for staff, students, and families. And it strengthens our documentation and reporting procedures as well, and ensures continued compliance with Maryland COMAR requirements.
Are there any questions?
And there's a lot of red. I know that
Almost like it
usually
wasn't a policy.
that means it's, like you said, it's aligning with the state. This
Yes.
was just revised a
Last
year
year.
ago. and
Yes, that was me as well.
I'm blown away by how much changed in a year.
Yes, it's more so that they changed a lot of terminology, like a lot
Okay.
of vocabulary changed. And just reading through our procedure, I just felt like we could organize it a little bit better so that
Right.
anyone looking at it could understand it a little bit better. And our documents tend to change based on our school need and our student need and our teacher need. So I took those, as you scroll down to the old one where the red is, I took those old documents out.
Okay.
And that way they're public on our website. So that way, as we revise those, it doesn't necessarily have to be in the procedure. We just have them in our process as we use it in the school district.
Thank you. Okay, thank you.
Okay.
And then Dr. Markosian's also going to be here for our map presentation.
Okay.
So does anybody mind if we let it run and we sent it out with
Good
the
evening and welcome.
videos?
Thank you for
I
joining.
can also give like just brief points if you want me to, just slide by slide. It's up to you.
Do you have a preference of letting it run?
Whatever you think people watching will get the best bang for their buck and explanation and understanding what we're showing.
Yeah, I think let's let it run.
Okay.
We're doing well on our time this evening, so I don't think it will hold us too much later. So let's let it run and then we can answer questions.
Good evening and welcome. Thank you for joining us tonight. We appreciate the board's continued commitment to student achievement and data-informed decision-making in Kent County Public Schools. This evening, we will be sharing our local spring assessment data for the school year 25-26. We will review the results across our early childhood and elementary grades using the Renaissance Star Early Literacy and Star Math assessments, as well as our grades 3 through 8 reading and math data from the NWEA MAP assessment. We will also take a look at how our students performed across key student groups and school buildings. As you review the data tonight, we hope you will join us in celebrating the growth of our students and educators have achieved this year, while also recognizing the areas where we could continue to focus our efforts in the year ahead. Let's get started.
The data represented in the following slide are full assessment data for KCPS for school year 25-26. This will be the Star Renaissance data for grades pre-K through 2 and the NWEA MAP data for grades 3 through 8. Kent County Public Schools is making a purposeful and strategic shift in how we measure student learning. Beginning in school year 26-27, Renaissance Star assessments will be used district-wide for grades K through 8, replacing the NWEA MAP assessment. This transition is driven by two important priorities. First, the Maryland State Department of Education has approved the Renaissance Star Assessment as a screener for the Kindergarten Readiness Assessment, KRA, ensuring our youngest learners are assessed using the state-recognized validated tool. Second, adapting Renaissance Star across all grade levels, K through 8, allows us to create consistency in how we measure, track, and respond to student growth from kindergarten through middle school. By aligning our assessment system with a single state-approved platform, we will be better positioned to identify student needs early, monitor progress over time, and ensure that every instructional decision is grounded in reliable, comparable data across all grade levels and buildings. We are confident that this transition will strengthen our ability to serve every student in Kent County.
This chart tracks the percentage of pre-K, kindergarten, and first grade students across the 3 skill levels, established, developing, and beginning, on the Renaissance Star Early Literacy Assessment, comparing fall and spring of 25-26. Pre-K showed the most dramatic growth of any grade, with established skills jumping from 51% to 80%, a 29 percentage point gain in a single year. This reflects the strong impact of our early childhood literacy instruction. The significant drop in pre-K developing skills from 22 down to just 6% tells us that students who were working toward proficiency in the fall largely reached the established level by spring. That is a great story. Kindergarten maintained a stable performance, with students maintaining an established skill level within the 70% range in the spring. Minor shifts across categories are typical and do not indicate concern. The apparent dip in first grade spring scores is an important data point to address. The decline in first grade established skills from 61% to 38% does not reflect a loss of learning. It reflects the fact that many of our students who were proficient readers transitioned to the STAR reading assessment in the spring and are therefore not captured in this early literacy data. In other words, the students who disappeared from this chart are our strongest readers. They graduated to a more advanced assessment, which is actually a positive outcome. Overall, this data gives us confidence that our early literacy instruction is working and students are entering kindergarten and first grade better prepared than ever. This chart tracks the percentage of grade 2 students across 4 performance categories: at above benchmark, on watch, intervention, and urgent intervention on the Renaissance STAR reading assessment, comparing fall and spring of school year 25-26. The headline story here is growth at the top. Students at or above benchmark increased from 35% in the fall to 46% in the spring, an 11 percentage point gain in a single year. That is a significant and meaningful improvement. Every at-risk category decreased from fall to spring. On watch dropped from 21 to 14. Intervention held nearly steady from 23 to 22, and urgent intervention declined from 21 to 17%. Moving in the right direction across the board is encouraging. The decrease in on watch is particularly noteworthy. A 7% point drop suggests that a meaningful number of students who needed monitoring in the fall made enough progress to reach benchmark by spring. While we celebrate this growth, it is important to acknowledge that 54% of grade 2 students are still below benchmark in the spring. This tells us there is continued and urgent work to do in supporting our struggling readers. The students remaining in intervention and urgent intervention categories are our highest need learners and will require intentional, targeted support as they enter 3rd grade. We are encouraged by the trajectory this data shows, and we remain committed to ensuring every student has access to the intervention supports they need to reach grade level proficiency.
This chart tracks the percentage of kindergarten, first grade, and 2nd grade students across 3 skill levels: established, developing, and beginning, on the Renaissance STAR Math Assessment, comparing fall and spring of school year 25-26. Pre-K students are not assessed using the Renaissance STAR Math Assessment. Kindergarten is our strongest performer in this data set, with 64% of students at the established level in the spring. The overall picture remains very strong. Nearly 2/3 of kindergartners are meeting or exceeding expectations in math. Grade 1 showed meaningful growth from fall to spring. Established skills increased from 48% to 60%, and beginning skills dropped from 36 to 24. That 12% gain in proficiency tells us students are responding to math instruction and moving in the right direction. Grade 2 also showed positive growth, with established skills rising from 40% to 52%, a 12 percentage point gain mirroring grade 1's improvement. Beginning skills declined from 39 to 34, reflecting our continued progress among our developing learners. Overall, this data gives us confidence in the strength of our early math programming, while also reminding us the importance of sustaining intervention supports for our most vulnerable learners.
This chart tracks the percentage of grades 3 through 8 students scoring at the highest MAP ELA levels, 4s and 5s, across 4 school buildings spanning 3 school years from fall 2023 through spring 2026. The big headline here is Garnett Elementary School, which reached 46% in spring of 2026, the highest score of any school in most recent assessment period, and a remarkable achievement. This represents sustained growth over 3 years and reflects the strength of ELA instruction at that building. Rock Hall has been consistently strong across 3 years, reaching 45% in spring 2026. Rock Hall's ability to consistently recover each spring speaks to the quality of instruction happening in that building. Galena showed steady and encouraging growth, ending at 34% in spring 2026, its highest spring score across the 3-year period. This is a positive trajectory we want to continue to support and build on. KCMS has shown improvement in school year 25-26 from 26% in spring 2024 to 32% in spring 2026. That's encouraging and suggests that supports being put in place are beginning to take hold. All 4 schools ended the school year of 25-26 with a spring score level above their fall score. As we look ahead to school year 26-27, our focus will be on sustaining the momentum in our schools' ELA progress while continuing to invest in student support. This chart tracks the percentage of students scoring at the highest MAP ELA levels, 4s and 5s, by grade level across grades 3 through 8, across 3 schools from fall 2023 through spring 2026. Grades 4 and 5 are our strongest stories in this data set. Grade 4 climbed steadily to 44% in spring 2026, and grade 5 surged to 46%, the highest spring score of any grade across all 3 years. Both represent meaningful, sustained growth in upper elementary ELA. Grade 3 ended at 38% in spring of 2026, showing a 12% growth throughout the year. Grades 7 and 8 are showing encouraging momentum at the middle school level. Grade 7 reached 36% in spring 2026, its highest point across the entire 3-year period. And grade 8 rebounded strongly from 22% in spring 2025 to 37% in spring 2026. Grade 6 is an area we are focusing on next school year. Because of the decline, we want to better understand the contributing factors and focus strategic supports in areas of need. The pattern of spring scores exceeding fall scores holds true across nearly every grade level, confirming that students are making consistent gains within each school year. Overall, the trajectory across most grade levels is positive and reflects the impact of strong ELA instruction. Our focus heading into school year 26-27 will be on sustaining upper elementary momentum and addressing the grade 6 dip with targeted support. This chart tracks the percentage of grades 3 through 8 students scoring at the highest MAP ELA levels, 4s and 5s, by student groups across 3 school years from fall 2023 through spring 2026. At the district level, this is our strongest spring ELA performance in 3 years. The district reached 37% in spring 2026, up from 31% in both spring 2024 and spring 2025, and represents meaningful district-wide growth in ELA proficiency. Our African American students showed the most dramatic single-year gain of any subgroup, jumping from 16% in fall of 2025 to 26% in spring of 2026. That percentage point gain in 1 year is significant and reflects the impact of target literacy supports for this population. English learners held steady at 13% in spring 2026, matching fall 2025. While scores have fluctuated over 3 years, the current level remains low and reminds us that this group requires continued and sustained language and literacy support. Students with disabilities showed a notable dip to 6% in fall 2025 before rebounding to 12% in spring 2026, returning to their 3-year baseline. This recovery is encouraging, and we know there is more work to do to accelerate the growth for our students with disabilities. Economically disadvantaged students showed strong growth, rising from 25% in fall of 2025 to 32% in spring 2026. The highest score this group has achieved across the entire 3-year period. This is an encouraging sign that our equity-focused supports are beginning to yield results. The growth we are seeing, particularly for African American and economically disadvantaged students, tells us our strategies are working. Our challenge now is to sustain and accelerate that momentum for every learner.
This chart tracks the percentage of grades 3 through 8 students scoring at the highest MAP math levels, 4s and 5s, across 3 school years by school building. Garnett is our standout story this year, jumping from 32% in fall 2025 to 62% in spring 2026. This is a remarkable single-year gain and deserves recognition. Rock Hall has been our most consistent high-performing school in math over 3 years, and their spring 2026 score of 48% continues that trend. Galina's spring rebound to 27% shows students are responding to instruction. KCPS is committed to providing instructional supports to foster future improvement. KCMS shows consistent growth from 16% in fall 2023 to 21% in spring 2026 over 3 years. This tells us supports are working, but we know there is more work to do. Across all 4 schools, spring scores consistently exceed fall scores, which aligns with the expected growth patterns and confirms students are making gains within each school year. This chart tracks the percentage of grades 3 through 8 students scoring at the highest math levels, 4s and 5s, by grade level across 3 school years. Our elementary grades 3, 4, and 5 are showing strong and positive momentum heading into the school year 26-27. Grade 4 jumped to 45% in spring 2026. This is particularly impressive and reflects what strong, sustainable instruction can achieve. Grade 5's recovery from a low of 9% in fall 2024 to now 42% in spring 2026 is a remarkable turnaround. We are proud of the work happening in grade 5 and want to understand what drove the growth so we can replicate it. At the middle school level, grade 7 is trending in the right direction with encouraging, steady, consistent growth. Grade 6 spring 2026 dipped to 15% after reaching 24% in spring 2025 is something we are watching closely. The middle school transition can impact math performance, and we want to ensure strong support structures are in place. Overall, the elementary grades are driving our strongest math results. We see an opportunity to build on that momentum as students move into the middle grade levels. This chart tracks the percentage of grade 3 through 8 students scoring at the highest math levels, 4s and 5s, by student group across 3 school years from fall 2023 through spring 2026. At the district level, spring scores have consistently outpaced fall scores across all 3 years, resulting in 32% in spring 2026. African American students have shown a consistent pattern of spring recovery across all 3 years, reaching 21% in spring 26. While scores remain below the district average, the sustained spring rebound each year reflects that this group is responding to instruction and intervention supports. Scores for English learners remain the lowest of any subgroup and underscore the urgent need for targeted math language supports for our English learner population. Students with disabilities had spring recoveries, which suggests that consistent year-round support structures are critical to sustaining their math progress. Economically disadvantaged students show the most dramatic variability of any subgroup, making great gains, reaching 22% in spring 2026 at 17% gain since the fall scores. Across every subgroup, the pattern of low fall scores followed by higher spring scores is a consistent trend and reflects expected within-year growth. Closing the achievement gap between our subgroups and the district average remains a top priority. We are committed to accelerating growth for every learner in school year 26-27. This slide represents the highlights from school year 25-26. ELA literacy highlights. Pre-K students showed exceptional growth from school year 25-26 with established skills on the STAR Early Literacy Assessment, jumping from 51% in the fall to 80% in the spring, a 29 percentage point gain in a single year. Grade 2 students at or above benchmark on STAR reading grew from 35% in fall to 46% in the spring, with decreases across all 3 at-risk categories, a positive across the board shift. At the district level, grades 3 through 8 students scored at the highest MAP ELA levels, reaching 37% in spring 2026. This is the strongest spring ELA performance in 3 years. Grades 4 and 5 were standout performers at the grade level, reaching 44% and 46% respectively in spring 2026, the highest scores among all grade levels in the most recent assessment period. Math highlights. Grade 1 students showed strong math growth with established skills on the STAR Math Assessment, increasing from 48% in the fall to 60% in the spring. Grade 2 mirrored this growth with established skills rising from 40% to 52%, a 12 percentage point gain from fall to spring. Garnett achieved the highest MAP score of any school across the entire 3-year period, reaching 62% of students at the highest levels in spring 2026, an extraordinary achievement. Grade 4 and 5 led all grade levels in the spring 2026 MAP performance, both reaching 45 and 42% respectively, reflecting strong upper elementary math instruction. Grade 7 demonstrated steady and sustained math growth across all 6 assessment periods, climbing from 19% in fall 2023 to 28% in spring 2026, its highest point in 3 years. Demographic and student group highlights. African American students made the most significant single-year ELA gain of any subgroup, jumping from 16% in fall 2025 to 26% in spring 2026, a 10 percentage point increase in a single year. Economically disadvantaged students reached 32% in spring 2026 MAP ELA, the highest score this group has achieved across the entire 3-year period, reflecting the growth impact of equity-focused literacy supports. English learners held steady at 13% in spring 2026 MAP ELA, maintaining fall 2025 levels. While growth remains a priority for this group, the stability after years of fluctuation is an encouraging sign.
As Kent County Public Schools transitions to Renaissance Star assessments district-wide for grades pre-K through 8, school year 26-27 will serve as a critical baseline year. With a new consistent assessment platform in place, we will have the opportunity to set more precise and comparable goals across all grade levels and student groups. By June 2027, all KCPS students in grades pre-K through 8 will participate in Renaissance Star reading and math assessments from beginning of the year through the end of the year, establishing a robust baseline for future goal setting and progress monitoring. By June 2027, all KCPS students will demonstrate a minimum 4% increase in ELA proficiency from their beginning of the year score to their end of the year score on the Renaissance Star reading assessment. By June 2027, all KCPS students will demonstrate a minimum 4% increase in math proficiency from their beginning of the year score to their end of the year score on the Renaissance Star math assessment. In fall 2026, KCPS will analyze beginning of the year data to identify targeted goals from marginalized student group populations with a focus on developing data-driven strategies to close persistent achievement gaps. Thank you for your time, and we look forward to the achievements of KCPS students in the 26-27 school year.
Question. You do this presentation?
Yes, I took part in it along with Michelle Serino.
Do we usually do this as a recording, or don't we do it live? I can't remember.
We've done both, and
I
typically,
couldn't understand anything. If I was taking this class, I'd fail because I got lost.
yeah,
I
well,
don't mean
we,
to be, I'm not to be negative. You did everything right, but I just couldn't understand the speaker or something.
well, and I did send it out and link to everyone last week, so you have access to go back and take your time, turn up the volume. But I
Yeah, I
understand,
think
we
it's
have
the
done these a
speakers.
combination.
Yeah, hopefully at home, the
So you
volume
think
comes.
the public watching this heard it a lot clearer than we did here?
Well, that's part of the streaming service. So, and this video will also be on our website that people can go back and watch it when
Great
they're,
that we're going in the right direction.
and if you look year upon year, are we where we want to be? No. But are we seeing steady growth
Yeah.
year upon year upon year? Yes. Are we seeing our students grow from where they are at the beginning of the year to the end of the year? And what's most important, if you go back and look at the baseline for each year, you see each year's baseline in and of itself is climbing, right? So, so thank you, Mr. Rhodes, for that.
Let me ask a question. Explain to me the difference between the Renaissance Star and the map. Are we going from one to the other? And that first 2 slides was kind of explaining what the transition was about.
Yes, absolutely. So we are moving from our NWE map, which we have used for several years, to the state-approved screener, which is the Star Renaissance. So MSDE has provided a list of approved screeners, and the Star Renaissance was on the list. It's also the same program that you use for KRA and pre-K testing that we have in the beginning of the year. So we will have a consistent local testing program that we can use all the way from pre-K all the way up, which is really great because that's the first time I've ever seen that in our district.
And that still translates to the state.
This is what MSD is recommending that we use.
So you can compare apples to apples.
I don't want to say that because we've never been able to compare apples to apples. It's always
Okay.
kind of apples to oranges because we've never seen questions. We're not allowed to see the
Yeah.
questions that are presented by the state, but it is what MSD recommends that we use.
Let me just add also a little clarification. What's important to understand, whether it was MAP, which the MSDE for many years supported, just recently, our state superintendent is doing a lot of diligent work around standards in academics, and so that's driving the shift from NWEA measures of academic progress to the new STAR Renaissance. It's important to understand these are growth measures. And so how far are our students growing in a single academic year?
Yeah.
Which is different than achievement, which is what the MCAP tests are, right? So there's growth test and there's achievement test. And we tend to want them to be one and the same, but they are different things. I think an easy to use metaphor that I've have found over the years that a lot of people can relate to is if you're someone who's training for a marathon, right? Your growth test is the same as keeping your pace, right? Am I running the 1 mile, each mile at the right pace? So am I moving through this at the right speed that I need to make my final time across the finish line, which is your achievement. So I want to run the marathon in 13 hours. Am I pacing to make it in 13 hours? So think about crossing the finish line as your achievement test, which is the end of year state test. Your growth is your pacing. Are you slowing down and falling behind where you need to be because you're getting tired or because you're at a hill instead of a flat ground? So think about how those two relate. We want very much always to use the growth measures as a predictor of how we'll do, right? Because we know if I'm keeping my pace running, then chances are I'm going to cross that finish line at the time I want to cross the finish line. So they're related in that way, but they are slightly different. What makes this Renaissance so great is it now includes the early childhood grades where MAP did not go down below grade 3, I think it was. So now we have pre-K all the way through 8th grade, same series of instruments. We do know, just on a related note, the state of Maryland, this was our last year using the current MCAP test. Next year, the state will be issuing out a whole new battery series of state tests, and I think we're calling them
MSTAR.
MSTAR. So we've got the STAR assessment that leads to the MSTAR. And
So one
so,
is for growth and one is for achievement.
yes, sir. Yes,
That's
sir.
important for people to understand.
Right. So thank you for that.
Is that something the state is testing, or as a way to figure out if that's a good
Yes.
assessment for achievement, or?
Right. So Dr. Marcosian is our local accountability coordinator. So she serves as our point of contact with the state. And so are we, what's the reliability, validity? Is it next year a field testing of that? Can you share with us?
I believe that it is. I'm going to MSD tomorrow to Columbia to learn way more about the MSTAR, but I know that our scores are coming out very soon, so I think I can hold off on that question because you'll see me very soon with the data, and I'll know more once I hear a little bit more about it in the next couple days.
I think what Miss Mackenzie is referring, for anybody in the viewing audience, oftentimes when the state, any state comes out with a new batteries of tests, they often will field test them. And the psychometricians go through and look at validity and reliability. So are we testing what we believe we are testing, and are there consistency in the way students are responding to the test questions? So
Yes. I know the high school test, the last that I was told by MSC is the high school tests are staying the same. The 8th grade social studies test is staying the same, and the science tests are staying the same. They're going to change ELA and math from 3rd grade all the way through 8th grade. So those are the ones that are slightly changing. But like I said, I want to make sure that I tell you the correct information when I hear it.
yeah, And let me just add to that for how the state's looking at ELA and math as what they're moving forward with the new series compared to social studies and science. That's because under federal guidelines, we are required to do the literacy and math. Maryland, of its own accord, has added social studies and science. And so just as we as a school system have our strategic plan, the state has its strategic plan, which is part of its federal obligations. And so that's why the focus there is on ELA and math, where social studies and science is of our own decision to do that as a state. And so their obligations around that's slightly different.
Yeah, I think you, because I got questions. but
Yeah.
I-
Okay.
Well, I was just thinking, because when I compared the progress that you shared tonight to our strategic plan, I would say, the majority of our numbers are exceeding what's in our strategic plan. And so I just want to start by saying, that's amazing, right?
Absolutely.
Because that's what we want to see. There were numbers so that of course are beneath what the strategic plan had predicted and hoped for. And so with that, and I'm looking specifically at the MAP progress for our English learners, our students with disabilities and economically disadvantaged. And so those were pretty significant discrepancies between our progress and what we had hoped to achieve. When I think about the progress we're hoping for in light of the strategic plan, how do we account for that discrepancy? Because then does that change? Because this is a plan that lasts until 2029. So how do we
Right.
account for that?
We, I believe somewhere in the strategic plan, and I don't have the page number in front of me, we identified that those projections were based on that original baseline year. So, and we said every year we're going to need to revisit that to set appropriate measures. Because growth and achievement is rarely across the board and at a steady rate. There's usually significant variability, even within a subject area, right? You might have some grade levels that are meeting and exceeding, and you have other grade levels that aren't. So rarely is it just a single, blow things out of the water. And so that's why we're going to have to come back and look at those and reset that. And I believe we said that's written in that strategic plan each year. I'm sorry, I just want to also add, it will be important for us to see next year's achievement because that really is setting a new baseline with new instruments that are calibrated differently. The state superintendent went through and reset the math and ELA standards. There is, some changes to the standards. And so they re-looked at everything and then built new series of tests aligned to the new standards. One of the things we know about the outgoing MCAP tools themselves, the instruments themselves, really did not go through as rigorous a validity and reliability psychometric process as is preferable. And we also had variation in the nature of the test, particularly for math. So what I mean by that is some of our grade level tests in math were adaptive, right? So if a student starts to score well on the more difficult test questions, then it would send like that next level of difficulty, right? And so a student would then plateau at what is the highest level that they're succeeding at. Not all of our tests in math were adaptive. Other grade levels were sort of the traditional, what I would call linear tests that most of us are used to taking from our generation, where you just go through and you answer the questions. It doesn't scale up in difficulty or drop down in difficulty, depending upon how you're responding to the test. So there was variation in the nature of the instruments, particularly in mathematics. So sorry to get into the mechanics of testing, but all of those are significant differences between the outgoing MCAP and the incoming MSTAR.
Yeah, I mean, I guess when I think about like how to close the gap, and do you feel like you have the resources available? Are there things that is there something more needed in terms of resources to reach the ones that are, not achieved?
Right. Thank you for that. We have discussed, and all of you have agreed and been very supportive of our efforts. We acknowledge that one of the key things we need to do is build out instructional coaching. instruction, the quality of what's happening in our classrooms. We are fortunate in that moving into next year, the state will be providing us some math coaches to help with mathematics. We don't have the literacy coaches, but we were identified and will be receiving instructional coaching around mathematics.
From the state.
From the state. So you may have seen our state superintendent has a big initiative around instructional coaches. The literacy tends to get the attention, but they are also doing a smaller scale of math. I
At
know.
least locally.
But not how
Yeah.
they teaching
Well,
it now.
Statewide,
and
too.
across the
I mean,
state,
across
math.
the state.
Yeah, across the state math is. I think, we start to see it here in our own data in 4th and 5th grade. I'm interested to see what our state assessment data is. We understand the state is hopefully releasing that earlier this year than ever before. I was just looking to see if the state board meeting is, I thought it was next week, but it's the 27th. And the
They're doing
agenda's,
like a meet, something small this week.
okay,
Got data on Friday.
okay.
And then I think we're going to see some things early
Yes, okay, so that's good. So, but I was saying that because I know in working with Dr. Keene, we were looking at our report cards for special education that came out. And of note is our 4th grade in both math and reading with students with special education services. And she and I were discussing, we're really more and more seeing the impact of Orton Gillingham. So that's why I think they focus on literacy first, because math problems today and the math
Read.
standards you have to read.
You have to be able to
Yeah.
read. Yeah, I know.
It's not
that.
just
Yeah.
2
Different
plus
way to
2.
get to the
I
solution.
know.
Right. So if you're not a strong reader, you're not going to be able to break apart the math problems, even if you have good computation skills. If you don't understand the context of the math problem, you can't get to the computation part. So you have to be a strong reader and strong computationally.
Full of questions. So is the Renaissance Star supposed to be a sort of a bar or sort of scale to see if we're growing like this, then an assessment or not assessment,
Predictive.
achievement test should be this to correlate. So are they running conclusively?
Yeah, so that's the aspiration here,
Okay.
with the state really coming together with an aligned assessment system. Dr. Wright is also, and I know that we're not at this point yet, but has talked to superintendents about also building out a benchmark assessment system so that we could get quarterly, temperature checks, right? To see if we are on track, because it really does come down to this monitoring progress and paying close attention and responding. Early intervention changes the game. And so I appreciate you asking about what else do we need to do to lift those areas where we're not hitting our what we're trying to hit on schedule. A lot comes down to that instructional coaching. We're getting that in math. We are looking at how we're using our lead teachers in our 3 schools that have lead teachers to support instructional coaching. We clearly have an in-house strong models at Garnett and Rock Hall around their processes for looking at students that need intervention. So they're sort of multifaceted. And I really do appreciate the fundamental question of being what else do we need to do? What else do we need to figure out?
Right. And speaking to that, we also have our school improvement plans where we analyze this data and make changes to those plans. Our teams look at all of this, and I will speak to looking at what MCAP offers as far as data and as far as the reports that it provides. And MSTAR offers, Renaissance offers so much more as far as diving deeper into understanding standards, and it offers just quick informative checks if we need those things, that we can also provide those things as well. And then I know that we're going to be training a lot of our staff on these new platforms and these reports very soon. So there are a lot of good things coming this way that will help support our teachers, who will then help support our students.
I will say our principals are very excited about the actionable, as she was just saying, the actionable information we
Yes.
can get out of STAR compared to NWEA maps.
Right.
Which at the time, when it first came out, was it was better than they had anything before.
There are
that.
so many reports that are so user-friendly and that we can really narrow things down to where students are struggling on specific standards. So.
A few questions with this. For the King County goals and targets moving forward, how did we come to that 4% increase?
That is a great.
I can speak to that. My understanding is as we were coming out of the pandemic, the team had been working with MSDE at that time. Now, this is going back a couple of years before I got on board, and really worked with MSDE. And MSDE says, you know, when you really look at trends, most school systems, most data takes about a 2% increase at a time. And my understanding is the board really worked with Dr. Couch around setting a more ambitious
Yeah, I
goal
was
of
gonna
4%.
say,
Yeah, that was the
the
old board.
plan,
Yeah, and so really kind of was set with that because, you know, it was 12 months ago that we published our strategic plan. And again, it is a living document. It's our system-wide improvement plan, essentially, right? And so I would offer that, you know, every year when we're in our fall retreat, looking at what is the percentage that we think is appropriate and best. It's always tricky because you don't want to set too low, right?
Right.
Like we want to aim high, but you also want to be realistic, right? So where is that ambitious, reachable goal that keeps us with some pressure on us moving forward?
But that's only with growth, that's not achievement, correct?
Well, with both,
With both,
right?
okay.
Because the end game is achievement, right?
Correct,
Growth
okay.
is that sort of monitoring the progress as you're running the marathon,
Yeah.
right? At the end of the day, what the community most cares about is achievement, right? But growth is nothing to be ignored. Some people want to
It's a
dismiss
way to
it.
measure.
Well, that's why, I mean, so you know, knowing it might be a hard sell, but that it was possible, but we didn't set the aim was not to set the bar so high, discouraged and wouldn't
Right.
keep trying.
Right.
So, yeah. I mean, it was kind of like, I don't want to say the happy medium, but it was,
Or a little
that's
bit
kind of
high.
what it was.
Yeah.
And in most instances, we exceeded
Mhm.
the 4%.
Yeah.
So, I mean, I think.
I know, but
you know,
people-
just based on-
No, when they did it, when the old
But
board
we
did
had
it,
it-
it was,
We had a discussion
Yeah.
about it, like, for some internally, I mean, not necessarily the board,
no,
but.
and we did too, because it was when
Yeah,
we
but
first
this-
started, but I wouldn't say
but
how.
you- Yeah,
Yeah,
this date too, that, you know, I think some people thought that you're being overly ambitious.
Right.
So,
So let me, you know, it was when we first came in, but
Yes.
it was from you all, but we had spoke about it because we were doing evaluations at the time. Question. Two questions, and I'm done with the questions. The first question, when we say economically disadvantaged, if 80% of our student body lives in poverty, explain what that actual phrase economically disadvantaged actually means. A lot of people might look at that and just say, oh, that's poor people. So what does that exactly mean?
You want me to take
If-
that? Or?
Go ahead and then I'll
So there
add.
we have students labeled as free and reduced meals. We also have students labeled as economically disadvantaged, and that has to do with household income, if I'm correct, Dr. McComas.
Correct.
This has to do with the average household income of our student population. So yes, there is that poverty line, and that is the take-home income of our majority of our students.
Do we know that number of the average income median base?
Yeah, so of course, that's all held in confidentiality. Families self-report on
Not
that.
each family, I'm talking about like, do we have a baseline number to say, you're
I
this
like
number?
the
you're
average
poverty?
family, I don't have that number off the
Well,
top of my
it
head.
also
think we could
depends on the
probably
size of your
find that out.
family,
Yeah,
Mhm.
you know, so it's not like say, well, I'll make something up,
Like
we'll
the
say
gr-
20,000.
Right,
Well, it might be
For one
20,000 for
person, but
one
for a
person,
family
but
of
for a
four,
family
yeah.
of 5 kids, it's different.
right. And as always with averages, right? Half
Yeah.
are above and
Yeah.
half are below. But, and there are some of the federal and state definitions. So when you look at state reporting and they say economically disadvantaged, it's the same definition that we're using, and that's the same definition that federal reporting uses.
which is what again? I'll make sure I understand.
Well, it, based on average,
Income,
yes.
okay.
mhm.
And last question, this is for you, Dr. McComas. When you read the highlights from this on the growth, that's something, not kind of sell your career on, but could this be a good talking point for a superintendent who, I don't know, for case of a conversation, look
Get rid of me, Mr. Queen.
No,
I'm
no,
just
no.
teasing you. I'm teasing you.
That's kind of what the preference of the
Yeah.
question is gonna be, because I don't wanna put you on the
Like,
spot
do
like
I
that.
feel good or
Yes,
proud
if
about
you stand
these?
on this, if I was evaluating you right now, and you said, not for the job, but for where you think Kent County Public School
Yeah.
Systems is now versus where we were before your tenure, could you stand on this?
Well, what I would say is I think we are making progress, right? I think the question is, are we making progress at the speed at which we all want, right? And that gets back to the 4% goals.
Yeah.
And, you know, the truth is, me and everyone else wants us, that we want our proficiencies, whether it's measuring growth or measuring achievement. We want those numbers to be up in the 80s and 90s,
course.
right? In some instances, we're in the 60s, and we weren't a few years ago.
We're in the
So I
20s and
do
30s.
think that Kent County as a school system, as a community, can take pride in our school system is getting stronger year by year. Despite what people's perceptions may be, when you look at the data is telling that we are a school system that is becoming stronger and stronger in both math and ELA. We have a longer way to go in math than ELA.
But it's improvement.
Yes, and if you remember, last year we had a 2% gain overall as a whole system, and we saw math go up in every area. We're seeing some fluctuations in the growth, so I'll be interested to see what the achievement scores say.
I have one more question.
Oh,
Okay, sorry.
I noticed the big jump in African-American students, and that jump has just took place just this past school year. I've been following it for a couple of years. It's been very dismal. Started to improve around the beginning of my term, like a couple of percentage points. I want to say it went from 2% to 16%.
I think that was that in
How did something like that happen, even though we're putting them in groups in the African-American group, but maybe not the Hispanic speaking or disadvantaged group? Because I don't see a culture change that made it that big of a jump for African-American students. So any enlightenment on how that done so well in growth?
What I will share with you is there's a couple things happening, particularly at our elementary schools. Being able to provide our principals the teacher specialist position has really given our elementary schools an opportunity to really continue to build up and strengthen our student support team, or what I call boutique service.
Yes.
Right? And when you look at students in subgroups, right, these are not separate students. You can be a student of color who is also an
Economically
English,
disadvantaged
right?
and-
And so
yeah.
that's where you start to see when we really tighten the microscope and look at students as individual clients who need customized service, right? Mary may need math intervention 3 days a week for 20 minutes each dosage, right? That's where we start to see these gains. And so I will tell you, our elementary schools, with the addition, your support of providing our principals, that teacher specialists, has really made a difference there. We are, at 3 of our schools, we have the lead teacher model that we're implementing. And that's Galena Elementary. I think you're seeing steady, improvements year upon year. They've had 2 years now of a lead teacher, and that's getting stronger. And that is also helping with that. Our middle school, we're still working through that model. And, consistently, as we as a whole, as a board and our strategic plan, recognize our middle school is where our greatest area of growth must occur.
But I do like Garnett growth.
Yes, ma'am.
My last question was just related to the grade 3, the change from spring 2025, math, sorry.
Okay.
It goes from 45 to 30. I wasn't sure.
Yeah. So one of the
That one surprised me just because they're younger.
Yeah. One of the things we know that one of our schools had after-school tutoring program that was completely volunteers. That group disbanded, and I think we really see that impact because that was a school that had been really making gains. It's a good example of, again, the importance of customized service to students, right? Some students, and I think more students than not, often need additional practice, additional support. It's not that they can't, they just need more practices. Some students get it in 3 tries, Some students need 7 or 8 tries before they've mastered that. And I think we're seeing the impact of that tutoring program expand.
Are you talking about data system that you put in place so that you could track the students personally,
Yes,
individually?
yes.
And also, do you think that, because when I first came on board, I know one of the things was we didn't have the resources for the students. So do you feel like that has improved? Which could have contributed to.
I do think that the community schools resources are part of those resources that perhaps we didn't previously have, that we have, that are growing and expanding. You know, this year, our last 2 schools that came on board with community schools was our high school and Galena. And next year they get the per pupil funding. So they, moving into next year, will have more resources to provide those extra tutoring and supports for. So I do think that that's a significant resource bump up that that is helping this year upon year. And I would say if we look at Garnett, Garnett was our first school that was a community school. And we have a strong principal who has really consistent student support team
Community is
processes.
one of those schools that they will volunteer at.
Yes, and the teacher specialist there really works with the student support team, right? Where they're getting in and looking at exactly what students need. Now, one of the things I will share that we will also be doing next year, but it will be across the state. Part of this, the new literacy plan at the state levels requires every school system to have a student reading intervention plan for any student who is not on grade level in 3rd grade and above, right? And so once that essentially becomes that customized plan, right? You know, that menu that is specific to each learner and what is the school doing around intervention and monitoring that. That's really where the gain is to be made, you know, high quality first instruction where teachers have a rigorous understanding of the standard, followed by when a student is not able to make that on a growth trajectory that is typical, what are we then doing to provide that student additional instruction in a small setting, a small group setting, whether that's tutoring or small group within the classroom, and then monitoring them. I know I was talking with Ms. McKenzie, you know, one of the things we also are looking at for next year is stretching our summer learning program to 6 weeks. We've applied to renew our 21st Century Learning Grant. That's a federal grant that we've used over the years to provide our summer program. And we're looking at creating a 6-week summer program because that's what Horizons is. Research is really clear on summer learning. 4-week programs at best prevent slide. They don't make gains. You really need to get into 6- and 8-week programs to help students actually make gains. Now, 8 weeks is practically the whole summer, and parents do like their child to have a breather, and faculty like to have a breather as well. So we're going to take that step to go to a 6-week program, assuming that our 21st Century Grant, this new application cycle, which is a 3-year cycle, gets approved, to move in that direction because we know some students just need more time. Right? They shouldn't be penalized for the fact that neurologically they need just more practice.
Can't microwave a learner.
Right.
I've got a question.
Yes.
And it may be apples versus oranges kind of thing. So while I'm watching our data and all that, I'm also thinking in the back of my mind that this year, you know, we were in kindergarten readiness, you know, first in
the
what,
state,
in the
yeah.
state in what,
For a couple years.
ELA, and then, well, we were here once before, is what my point is. And then we weren't there. So of course we had a pandemic and all that, and hopefully we won't have another interruption. And, you know, we've, you know, Orton Gillingham and things like that. Now, but I'm just saying, I'm thinking the long game. And I'm hopeful, I don't know what we're doing, but hopefully that we're cognizant of the fact that we don't want to lose that momentum. So are you guys cognizant of the fact that we need to keep doing that, you know, because, And I don't want to be one and done. I don't want it to be this class and then whoever comes behind them's not. And then by the time this class gets to the middle school, they won't be talking about us that way anymore. So, I mean, are we mindful of that?
Yes,
Okay.
we absolutely are. And that's part of why I've tried to really make sure that we're bringing data reports that are clear, understandable, and show change over time as opposed to a single year's data at once, right? Because it's not a snapshot. This is the long game. And you don't win the long, you don't win the long game all at once. It takes strong
I told you about
performance
something
year
else the
upon
other
year
day.
upon year.
It's true. Slow and steady wins the game.
Mhm.
You know, I mean, and as long as we can, it isn't, as long as we're the needle, we're gonna get there.
Mhm.
So I just don't want us, I don't want us to lose sight of the fact that we've taken that first step,
Right,
Right.
Took a lot of little steps first, though, because it's been, after COVID, when you look at the fourth and fifth graders who really haven't been interrupted by COVID, outside of pre-K, which is tops for us, those are our strongest performers, but it's a valid reason. They weren't interrupted due to a pandemic. So I'm kind of grading my term on, so to speak, post-pandemic, and
Right.
where was the shift right after the pandemic, and how my time on the board, where did we go? Because that's what I'm judging on now. Because a lot of the stuff before the pandemic is just old data.
Well, and one of the other things is we're now going to have to do more. I mean, I think about one of the things I think about the pandemic is we benefited from $15 million in funding
Additional money.
that we don't have anymore. And there was a time when we had those coaches and we don't have them. So we got to be innovative and I don't know what else we got to be creative to not. I just don't want to
Which I think
lose
we
what we
have
got
been.
going.
Can I make a really quick
Yes,
point?
please
I
do.
would just like to say that we do assess pre-K as well. So we have early childhood programs, we have our pre-K, we have our Judy Center. We have teachers that are trained on these assessments and the importance of monitoring growth and monitoring our students. And not even just math and ELA, we also do social emotional monitoring as well. So I will say that working one-on-one with our early childhood, and this is our first year of me being involved in K-Ray, we have very ambitious teachers that are ask all the right questions and all the time ask questions and aren't afraid to know the next steps they have to take to help our students. So I speak very highly
Well,
that
I'm
I
not in
think
any
they
way,
know.
not in any way judging that
Right.
we don't have that.
No,
What I'm trying
I
to say
agree.
is that you've got board members that are sitting here that are watching that in the back of their mind know that we're moving and we're not going to
Absolutely.
be satisfied with the fact that we had a great report on July 13th of 2026 and then 2 years from now I'm going to say what the heck happened.
Right, we
Yes.
definitely are not in
Not
a
on my
posture of
watch.
coasting.
Yeah.
I think
that's-
it's, and I don't want to belabor the point, but, championships aren't won all at once. They're won one game at a time, and you have to focus on each game, right? Just because you won the last game doesn't mean you're going to win the next game. So we need to focus on this game right now. And for us as a school system, that's each year.
Yeah,
Each year, the students in front of us.
You're saying it better than I could, but that's exactly what
Mhm. Right. So, I mean, we win the championship by being excellent in each game and doing our best in each game. And that's a single academic year in this profession. So,
So I want to
Yes,
say,
ma'am.
as problems arise, you have to know how to deal with them. You know, it's not going to be the same problem every time, and you can't solve it the same way every time. Different things come up, and we have to have different strategies. That's just like when it comes to the children, the learners that have disabilities, the ones that English, speakers, or the African American, and we have to put things in place that address that and try to help them out rather than just look at it and then they're okay. We have to have the resources also to do it, and we have to make it a priority. So I'm just saying, I feel like every board had to address something,
yes.
and it wasn't always the same.
Yep.
We've always had, other than probably when the pandemic was going on, had grants and funding, that was plentiful. We've always had a problem meeting you know, what we,
Resources.
our needs. And having everybody be on one accord for what schools need to invest in them the way,
Right.
which is what we're praying and hoping for now, is that we can get on one accord so that we can do better by our students from young up until they graduate from school. Not just make excuses when things happen. Problems happen, they happen to children, they happen to adults, but we have to have a mind to want to solve.
Thank you. Anything else for Matt and Star? Yes, sir.
So one
Thank
question,
you.
not to drag this out any longer, but just to achieve like some of these goals and targets moving forward, what lessons are we learning from the past as we further implement new measures?
I can speak to that instructionally. So one of the things that we are working on, and this is a lesson, like a learned lesson, right, is increasing the consistency at different schools. So for example, we know at Garnett 2 years ago, they had really as a school adopted a particular strategy around mathematics. And when they experimented with this strategy, they ended up having good results. And so in our principal meeting time, our principal from Garnett, Ms. Rose, really shared with us the strategy and how she and her faculty felt like that made a big positive difference for their students as learners. And so this past year, we were working to have that strategy at the other 2 elementary schools and even at the middle school. So that's an example of a lesson learned, looking at a practice that was yielding a positive difference and then spreading that practice to other schools. We're not perfect yet in implementation of that, but working towards that.
Questions or comments? Thank you very much.
I want to thank everybody for a robust discussion around it, academics. So thank you. I know there's a million things we could talk about, and I just want to thank you for like a
This
robust
is our bread and
discussion.
butter.
Mhm.
Can't perform there.
All right. Is this Mr. Wheeler?
Expenditure
Oh, I'm
report.
sorry. I jumped a thing.
That's okay.
Sorry.
I am going to stand in for Mr. Kirby. I am no Mr., I can't compare to Mr. Kirby, but I will share with you what he asked me to share. In a second here. So this is our monthly expenditure and revenue report. You could open that up. Thank you. Here are some of the highlights. So for Fund 1, you can make a note that we are still processing our FY26 invoices, as well as beginning to make journal JVs for those remaining balance numbers. So a lot of times we will make a purchase on something and then we get reimbursed because of grant funding. This is the process of reimbursement. They're the JVs that we're still working through. And that are still fluctuating a little bit. We'll try to keep you posted each month on the expected fund balance leading up to the time of the final statements at the end of September, because we know we always watch that fund balance. For Fund 3, which is school construction, you will see that the expenses for our Wharton building roof and Dr. Lever fees are accounted for, and the roof has a final walkthrough schedule for July 21st. For Fund 5, it's showing a loss for the year. However, we have not yet received our June payment for the state for meals reimbursement. So again, that reimbursement process is not yet showing, but that process is coming. We should receive that, and that should push our final number into a positive for food service. We also still have about $115,000 of fund balance in the food service fund. For restricted funds, just a reminder that these do typically carry into the new fiscal year because of when they come from the federal government. So we're not in jeopardy of losing any of these monies. And if it was unspent by June 30th, just the way the title funds carry over year to year. The final page where it compares last year to this year, showing that we're in a better shape from the previous year to help increase our fund balance. by greater than 871,000, which was our fund balance from the previous year. Forecast is we're still positioned as we have been discussing all along and should be in a solid place for fund balance and contingency. So that really concludes that. And then I think to your point, Ms. McGee, we're ready for Mr. Wheeler to come up, special needs bus purchase. As he's coming up, you'll remember that we had discussed kind of holding on that request until we kind of got through the foundation of the budget. So,
Dr. Can I ask just one quick question about
Sure.
the financial report?
mhm.
I just noticed that the construction fund for the middle school looks like a little bit less than the one for the Fortin Elementary. Is there
Right,
like a
that's-
reason for that, or is it
mhm.
is just like,
That's the current balance for the design and engineering phase. It's not the construction
Okay.
phase. So that was the funds that was allocated for paying the architects and that process.
okay, thank you.
So
You're
I wanna say
welcome,
it's like
and
three
our
stages
project
with that,
manager.
and we just on the first stage.
Yep. mhm. Thank you. Good question. Yes, Mr. Wheeler?
Dr. McComas,
Yeah.
President McGee, board members, new student member of the board. Good evening, sir. Welcome. This evening, my name is Joe Wheeler, Director of Operations Transportation. This evening, I'm here to request the approval for a new special needs bus. The Transportation Department is requesting approval to purchase a new special needs 2027 Thomas C2 in the amount of $172,795. This vehicle is needed to provide safe, reliable, and accessible transportation for students with special needs, while ensuring compliance and current safety and accessibility standards. Adding this vehicle to our fleet will make our fleet dependable, will provide dependable transportation services, reduce maintenance costs associated with aging vehicles, and minimize service disruptions. Just to add a little bit there, our vehicles are getting a little older. Our special needs vehicles are running from one end of the county to the other. So we're putting some miles on those buses. Some of those buses are reaching about 250, 260,000 miles on them at this point. The total purchase price for this vehicle is $172,795 through Sourcewell contract 102623 and lease purchase through JP Morgan Chase. Action, I recommend approval for the 2027 special needs bus.
How many seats? How large is that?
This is a 40-passenger bus, 40 passenger, and it leaves room for
Wheelchairs?
wheelchairs in the back, yes. Yes, ma'am.
Well,
Our normal buses are 72 passenger. I guess that's why you asked that question. Yes.
No, I was thinking something.
How
small.
long, when, let's say we approve it, when could we expect delivery?
I'm hoping we get delivery at the beginning of the school year. I'm hoping to start the school year with this new bus. It's needed. I do want to say that.
Yeah,
I want to reiterate that.
yeah, I got you. Okay.
there's no questions. I'd like to bring a motion to approve the request for the special needs school bus.
Mr. Queens made a motion. Is there a second?
I'll second.
Ms. McKenzie's made a second. Is there any discussion? I call for the vote. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. It is unanimous. All righty.
You're good.
New
yeah.
policy, emerging technology.
Thank you, Mr. Wheeler. I know, it ended up just the way it fell under administrative services. Yeah. But
Making
thank
sure I
you.
didn't, yeah, making
No,
sure
no,
I
I
didn't
know.
miss that-
Yeah,
miss
that
something,
was,
miss
no,
something.
you not at all. So thank you, everyone, for support around our board. New school bus for special needs.
All right.
And then, is it okay if we move on?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, so our next agenda item is a new policy. This is an initial read related to emerging technology. So I want to thank Mr. Poor, our Director of IT, for helping really be the point to help us pull this together. And just for the general public's knowledge, he has a background as an educator, so he has a unique combination skill set of IT and education. So go ahead, Mr. Poor.
Thank you. So good evening, President McGee, members of the board, Dr. McComas. Tonight, I am bringing forward the first read of the new emerging technology policy. This policy specifically outlines the requirements and responsibilities that would be in place before any emerging technologies such as AI are incorporated into the school system. In the coming months, there will be an accompanying procedure which will cover a lot of the details like vetting and approval, as well as like guidelines for how to actually use it in the classroom. There was some feedback about parent resources and things like that. So this policy specifically is just directing the Board of Education to create and adopt those procedures, along with making sure that there is a framework in place before any of those are actually introduced into the school system. This policy has undergone significant changes over the past year. It's evolved quite a bit, specifically with the passing of Senate Bill 720, which requires that we adopt the policy based on MSDE recommendations within 120 days from them publishing those recommendations. And then also we had a lot of feedback, and I would like to call out specifically our parents and students. We had a lot of really good feedback, which really helped to sort of evolve this over time. We had gone back and forth on creating specifically an AI policy, calling out AI individually versus creating an emerging technology policy. One of the things that really stood out to us, Dr. McComas, Dan Hushin, and Dan DeVillio and I attended an MSDE K-12 AI Leadership Conference earlier in the year. And one of the things we walked away from, sort of taking away from that, is AI is an emerging technology in a long line of emerging technologies. It is not the first. It will not be the last. I sort of got a giggle because, Trish, if you'll remember, a couple years ago, someone came in and did a presentation on VR and how it was supposed to revolutionize the classroom, and that kind of fizzled out pretty quickly. Now, AI seems to be here to stay for the most part, but by creating an emerging technology policy, this not only covers AI, but it also covers any technology that's going to come along in the future that we don't know about yet. So I know you have it in front of you. If you have any questions or if there's any feedback on something you'd like to see or see changed, I'm happy to hear that.
Yeah, I mean, I had looked at it and sent comments. Obviously, you know, Dr. McComas earlier, just the importance of our intent, right, as a district to partner with parents and guardians, because it's just a lot to keep up with. It's a lot for everybody to keep up with. And parents, this is not, you know, it's not our daily job, right? We're not professionals in this. And so it could just be very overwhelming. And my heart would be, you know, that we would express an intent, even at a policy level, to just say we'll be very intentional about partnering. You know, and I know we provide a lot of opportunities, and I'm not saying that we aren't making attempts to partner with families, but just with this, because it's new and we naturally feel anxious about it.
Yep.
It's just, I think it's important for us to really emphasize that.
Absolutely.
Agreed. I think it also becomes part of our ongoing work to support parents with resources too. Okay.
So if there's no further questions, I was going to take the feedback that I got today, and there are some modifications I would like to make around involving parents. I've already started to work with Mr. DeVillio over there on that one, so I will go ahead and make those changes, and then we'll bring this back at the next meeting.
Yep.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you.
Righty.
Then our next topic is to pick back up on our Citizens Advisory Committee. So as you recall, last meeting, we brought forward some considerations for evolving and our policy. And we were able to have a Citizens Advisory Committee, and we had a quorum. I want to thank you. Yeah. It was like, we did allow people to participate virtually and or in person, whichever they preferred, which we do feel like just that strategy alone is going to help us more frequently be able to achieve a quorum.
Did in the first meeting.
And we discussed the very things that we had brought forward to the board last week. And so I'll turn it over, Ms. McKenzie. Do you mind sharing some of the things that the CAC itself commented on and recommended?
Sure. So at our June 18th meeting, the recommendations that the CAC is moving, wanted to share with the board is to make community school coordinators additional members, bringing the total number of CAC members up from 13 to 18. Again, we don't want to take away opportunities for parents to be a part of the CAC. We want public participation, encourage that. But community school coordinators are uniquely positioned to give us information to connect us, right, with what teachers and parents and anyone at the school to be able to share that with us, to be able to help us connect better. I mean, they just are doing that work every day. They understand what the needs are and can get feedback a lot easier. And then change removing term limits to giving the Board of Education the option to reappoint a member to a third 2-year term. So our discussion was, we were going to say, at first it was like, oh, well, let's just not limit it at all, so we're removing term limits, but then it still has to be under consideration, the option. There's an option for the board to reappoint a member to a third term, 2-year term. Does that make sense?
Because they can't serve more than 2 terms consecutively. So if we're just removing the term, so if, let's say I ran and I did my 2 terms, it would be up to the board. I still have to apply the same way, but then the board can say yes or no to me doing a third year. So when we say remove term limits, it's just taking that 2-year term limit and giving it an option for a third year.
Third term, yeah.
Is the third?
2 is the max, correct?
Well, if
Well,
you
the
can
third
get a
term.
third, but I
Right.
mean, but after you, let's say you're a person who served
Mhm.
2 and the board said, okay, you can do it. That person come back and say, but
Right, I think that was one of the questions of, was there going to be, how many extensions can you have?
But
is
we're
the question.
reviewing it. For one, you do want that person with the numbers, if they went through 2 and they're willing to do a third, like some of the people have already, if I'm not mistaken. It's up to us to say yes or no to the third or fourth after the initial 2. Well, it's just 2 now. We're just adding an option if someone served the 2. For case in point, how we just went through it last year where people weren't signing up for it. It gives us the option as a board to let someone apply again and give them the option as the third. That's
Oh.
all it is.
so why don't you? If somebody could re-up for a third and possibly be, then why is there any, don't need the discussion at all, right?
But we should, my point of view in it was we need the term limit. You can reapply all the time, but like at some point, you don't want someone on the CAC for 6 years. You really don't want them for 4. You want that fresh perspective, fresh blood coming in every 2 years, as the limits say. We're just making an option. Correct me if I'm wrong, Laura. This is to correct some of the stalemate and lack of attendance and barriers that we might have had in the past to try to make people still want to continue or come on.
I'm just, is there a term limit? Or isn't there? I mean.
So the discussion, the discussion went from, instead of removing term limits, then to just giving the option for a third term, which would then be the end, and that's.
Because there are term
So
limits, you
one
can't do more than
extension.
2. So that limit would be your 2, max out. Then we can open that term limit option for the board to approve a third. So it is,
It really isn't a term limit.
no,
then.
2 years is the limit.
2 terms.
2 terms, yes, 2 terms, not 2 years.
With a potential third term.
Yes, 2 terms.
Yeah, but that's what's is confusing me. There's a limit, but there's not a limit.
Right, what's
I
confusing,
get what both of you are saying. I'm just trying to figure out what's the best way to say that.
right. I think your question is, you said it, how many extensions can you get, right? So like, okay, you do your 2 terms, then you apply for the extension to do another term. Could you do that again and get a 4th term, and then a 5th term and a 6th term? So I think that is the
Limiting the
question of,
extension.
is there, how many extensions?
And I want to
can
say
you
we
have?
kind of said that in the meeting too. It was talking about how many extensions.
So, right, so, there will be, it would be the third term.
Would be the max.
The max, yes.
Yeah.
So 1 extension.
So instead of extension, to Trish's point, instead of just saying 2-year term, we just say not to exceed 3 years.
Three
Three
ter-
terms.
three
Three
terms.
terms, yeah,
Yeah,
three
two
terms.
That's
Yes.
exactly what I'm
Yes,
trying
because-
to.
Because we do one year with 3 terms.
Because when you say extension according to someone's vote or whatever, it's almost like some will get it, some's not, won't be able to apply for it.
Takes the fairness out of
You
it,
know,
'cause it's based on other
Yeah,
judges.
so,
Or voting.
oh, and also if it's the third term and you have some fresh, someone else who's coming in, and maybe they try to get in first and second term, third term, you know, just
It
because they were
blocks the
already there, do
opportunity.
they, you know, have seniority or something? They feel like they do, and this other person feels like, well, I can't, only a certain amount.
Yes.
So you got.
So we have to consider all these things. We setting in, say, everybody does 3 terms. So you haven't had anyone else be able to get in for the last 6 years.
Right, that's if everyone did that. I mean, but I do see
you
what you're
never know.
saying is that we don't want to block opportunity for fresh perspective and fresh opportunity. I don't know that everyone's willing to serve a maximum of 3 terms. Some people are willing to do a term or 2 terms. We have
I'm
some
trying to
people
find the
who are
language.
willing to do 3, but I think that's where, again, because we don't want it to become monopolized either. Point of term, you don't have, you know, no individual becomes monopolizes.
Plus, they still have to file the application. So, you know, it's a situation. Have others consider them.
So, again, I don't really, I'm not, but the thing. Really?
Yep, we
Yeah.
can change that.
This is the last
Yeah.
sentence, shall
Okay.
serve a 1-year
Okay.
term.
So what we were doing here, we were just putting up, this is what we brought forward last time. Ms. McKenzie was giving you the committee's comments
Yeah.
and
Yeah, feedback.
thinking process to share
Yeah.
with you that even the committee had said, nah, we don't think that that's the right thing. They thought it would be better to say you can have a maximum of 3 terms, not to exceed 3 terms.
Just change it from 2 to 3.
So we can
That
do that.
fixes it.
So as far as, because we did, Dr. McComas gave a presentation on the strategic plan. We had a great discussion on community communications, and that's going to be, Dr. McComas will be talking about that communications plan at the next meeting, which will be on September 28th. But again, how do we just increase community? Will be our starting point. And then we do have 4 meeting dates scheduled this upcoming year.
And we
Just one
changed the
of them.
due dates.
That, I was going to say, the annual board update is something we do here, not in the committee.
I know, but, okay. Okay.
Maybe
Yeah.
I'm misunderstanding.
No, you're not misunderstanding, but, yeah. Yeah, you're not misunderstanding. Want to make sure that
We get our.
we
yes,
get something,
Yes.
yeah.
You get it from me, or wouldn't it?
Well, you can get it.
Well, we
monthly.
haven't been getting anything.
Right.
But
Oh, you mean like an actual, like,
but there's a
yeah,
presentation.
That's what I'm.
a report out, a real.
Yeah.
Right. Well, I would say this might count as our first one because we took the proposal to the committee for advice. Right? We said, we'd like to propose these things. We went, got their feedback. Their advice was not to remove the term limits, but to make it no more than a maximum of 3 terms.
Yeah.
So yeah, that would be my hope, that with each meeting, then the following board, there would be some report of this is the discussion and here's our thoughts.
So technically,
To share.
is this the report out you would be looking for? Trish?
Yeah, but I'm still thinking back to the policy, and I think in there it says there's an end of the year kind of presentation.
Correct. Of what
Because,
the committee did.
yeah,
Mhm.
even though there was still that, like, because I was the chair for 2 years. Every time we would have a meeting, I would tell the board what we discussed, what we
Yeah.
did. But we also had a member of the committee
not necessarily, wasn't a
Board
board
member.
member.
Oh, you actually had
Came
to
up,
admit.
stood at that
Oh, I
thing
didn't
and
realize that.
gave us a presentation.
Oh, I didn't realize
Yeah.
that.
No, I
Okay.
mean, you may
Yeah.
think that that's not necessary since we're getting a more immediate response every time we've had a meeting. So, but I'm just,
Yeah, yeah.
sometimes it's kind of easy, it's nice to sort of have it all wrapped up and say in the
A
course of the
summary.
year, these are the kinds
Yeah.
of. That's
Yeah.
something you guys can decide. I do have a couple of questions. So some of the dates have changed, like we're gonna do it, what? Like goes from July to June, is that what yeah, okay. So I'm trying to figure out where are we now, like, just to prove in person, it came on
Right, right.
people that agreed to be, okay?
Mm-hmm.
You have your full, have a full.
Membership,
full
yeah.
Full
membership,
committee members.
I think where we're.
other than the student member, that's what I'm wondering.
Yeah.
Okay,
So I'm going to actually ask Mr. DeVilio, 'cause he's been helping us keep track
Yeah.
of that.
so that's what I was gonna ask, and if you don't, when does that happen? Because we're in July now,
Yep,
so the
yep.
new year has started. Yeah.
On amending the policy for that. Otherwise, we do have the 2 representatives for each school, the 2 at-large members, and then our 2 board
The slate
members
will
serving
be
as
approved.
chair and co-chair.
So, other than the student member, everybody that will serve, that we're now, is the exact same group that served prior to July, right? There aren't any new people.
No,
other than- okay.
this new slate, this new term would be the second term for each of those individuals that
Okay.
you approved tonight. So this would be their second and final term.
So initially, when it got relaunched, some people were for 1 year and some
Mhm.
people 2, so that you would have staggered, so you don't get into a position where you get rid of 13 people at one time.
Correct.
How are you going to figure out of the group?
That's been established.
Okay,
This group is
The term
it's
that comes in
established.
for that, yeah.
So last year you approved
yeah, so this group
half
is,
of the panel,
Okay.
and this year
this
you've now
group
approved
that
the
we
second.
just approved is going to serve 2 years.
Yeah.
And the group that's already there
Next year,
has 1 year, and then, I got you, okay,
Correct.
yeah.
And I just want to personally say thank you, Mr. DeVilio, for helping us get that
Keep it
in
afloat.
check
Yes.
and being able to, on the spot, answer that.
Yeah,
So
thank you.
that's, I truly appreciate your leadership in that way.
One quick question. So officially, when would be the first meeting for everyone?
September.
So,
September 28th.
and then this is where we now set the dates for the year, correct? Because we voted this new batch in, is that correct?
Well, we discussed the dates at
Oh, I mean,
We
yeah, you got
already
the email out. Yeah,
identified.
yeah, yeah, okay. Because I'm just reading up there, say, because I was thinking in my mind, we just shot dates at the last meeting, but it say meeting dates for the year at the first meeting after July. But we already have those kind of combed out.
correct.
Right, we would
Okay.
bring them to that group and say, these are
These
what
are the dates.
proposed dates, any discussion or need to change or something.
That slide you're looking at, the top half are policy updates, and then that bottom
Those are the
section
things that you're
is just
asking.
agenda items at the call of the chair and vice
The
chair.
policy updates are what you're asking
The
the board to
board.
approve,
Correct.
right? Okay, I
Yeah.
got you.
The other things at the bottom are at the discretion of the president.
Yeah, I got that.
So just to go back to the policy updates, to align it with the strategic plan, that was supported by those members on the committee. They thought that that was a good model to try. Maintain the option of reviewing other topics. Again, the board always has the
That
authority.
hasn't
to-
changed,
No, right, the
yeah.
board always has that authority to say, you know what, something's come up and we really want the CAC to put on this. Examine membership to include community schools. So when we discussed with the CAC, they like the
That's
idea.
addition, right?
Right,
Okay.
they like their
So
recommendation.
you're going from 13 to 18.
Right.
Okay,
Their recommendation was not to remove the term limits, but to say you could do a third term and that would be it. So we can update the policy. We wanted to come and have the discussion, bring back to you what the CAC's recommendations was. And then,
Due date for application. May now? Is that what it
Yeah.
was?
Yes. To give more time for community engagement and
No,
recruitment.
I get that, but I'm just saying, when, let's say we vote to approve these, you're gonna actually write in the policy May 1st, right?
Correct,
Okay.
that
As
is in the
opposed to
draft.
just change due date.
yeah.
Okay.
So what I'm going to recommend is we will bring in August the revised policy, right? So we shared with you proposals last month, got some of your thoughts on that. We went to the committee, shared the proposals and your thoughts on that. They gave us more feedback. We're
That's
bringing the
today.
feedback to you tonight. Depending upon what your discussion was, then we will go through and do a new draft of the policy
So we actually
and bring that
can
in
vote.
August.
I'm cool with that. I think changing the verbiage is all that really needs to be done, in my opinion. From the remove the term limit from 2 to 3, and then actually putting that date of May 1st in the language.
And adding that the committee schools coordinators will increase the overall membership of, they're going to be a third person representing. That agreeable?
You're right,
to
yeah,
bring
because,
back?
right, currently the update said that the coordinator would serve as one of the 2 representatives, so that would not, that would
Right,
change.
that's what we originally
Yeah.
proposed, but then the
Yeah.
committee members didn't feel like
Because
that.
it would take a spot away instead of increasing it.
Yes. So again, tonight, we wanted to bring back the
So
feedback
you're not
from the
looking
CAC.
for us.
No.
Okay.
No, we wanted you to be up on what was discussed in the CAC. Again, not trying to rush it here. I want to make sure that by the time we get to approving whatever we approve, everyone has had their time to work through it. Okay. All right, thank you. Back in
Thank
August with the
you.
revised policy.
Moving on to board discussion. Eamon, I'm gonna start with you.
All right. This I want to take this time to shout out other students because I'm already getting my moment up here. I don't need to talk about me. So Boys State and Girls State was this week. I lied. I went to Boys State. So I was the only kid from Kent County High School who went to Boys State, and it was a great experience. Did a lot to learn there. A lot about sort of like the inner workings of government from the local level to the federal level, and it was just a great experience. And I learned that Sophie Kuzno, also in my grade, went to Girls State and had equally as wonderful as an experience. I'm 100% confident that she really developed as a leader there, that she learned a lot there. And I'm really glad that 2 people from Kent County got to go. As long as we had any representation at all, I think it's important. Especially because, there are so many kids across the state, and that every chance we can get to show that Kent County is still here and that they're capable of producing the next generation of leaders, we got, seize every advantage we get. And on that note, I want to shout out Billy Christel, Janie Depp, and Mally Worth. If you guys remember from June, FFA students. Now, they haven't got their results back yet about how well they did, but I'm 100% confident that they did pretty well. If they didn't, oh well. And a big shout out to the fall athletic teams as well, who are taking the summer to grind. I see the football Instagram posts probably every week, and they're out there and they're working their hardest. I believe in them. They have the heart, more heart than anyone else on the shore. Even I'm really proud of them, and I know for certain we have some real talent on the soccer team if that doesn't work out. I'm really excited to work with everyone here on this board. I'm really excited to tackle on this new year. I really look up to Alden, not physically, of course, but she is someone
Small goat.
she's someone I really admire, and I'm looking forward to filling in these shoes. And I hope that I can set up something great enough for the next person who comes in to say, oh, well, I'm pretty comfortable in this position. So, thank you all so much for having me, and I'm really looking forward to working with all of you.
Welcome again, Amy.
Thanks.
Mr. Rhodes?
I just want to say, Eamon, we're glad to have you here. It's going to be a wonderful addition to this board. And I also want to say that everyone on this board has worked extremely hard for our biggest endeavor on our middle school. And I feel everyone has put our time into it. We are the school board. We've done our homework. We've researched it in depth. And I think some people in this community don't understand all the work that we have put into it.
Facts.
And it's going to happen. So I'm just proud of everyone here, proud to be a part of this. And let's just move forward and get it done. That's all I have to say.
Mr. Queen?
My last board meeting, I piggybacked off something Frank said, so I'm gonna do it again. To his point, a lot of people in the community it's a campaign year, so of course we expect it. I'm kind of upset that our school system is in the political campaign as the major topic, but you'll read a lot of social media posts, a lot of opt-ads, and a lot of things circling out network-wise, media-wise, but understand the elected officials up here are the experts for our public school system. Our superintendent is the day-to-day face that runs the day-to-day operations. We like to think we are the experts. So instead of getting your information from media sites or campaigning candidates, check with your school system and your elected Board of Education on where we actually stand with any process in our school system.
Thank you.
Dorsey?
I would just like to take this time to welcome to the, we're glad to have you, and also welcome our new HR director, Ms. Holloway. I'm happy to have you as
Shout out Ms.
well.
Holloway.
And I'll take this time out to say that I can't wait until we break ground on our new middle school. And I believe
Facts.
that it will happen because it's something that is needed. And if we invest, if we are serious about our students and their success, then there's no way that anyone who has their best interests at hand and has that opportunity as an elected official would say no. You work out everything else, and when it comes to our future, Kent County's future, that's what we should be saying yes to. It's not the individual student, but it's Kent County's future. Okay.
Ms. McKenzie?
Welcome to Amen. So glad you could be here tonight. I had the opportunity to attend MABE's Board of Directors meeting on July 9th, and the only thing I wanted to mention for your awareness is they approved a policy to establish a federal advocacy committee as a standing committee in MABE, and so that will serve as the primary body for monitoring, analyzing, advocating for, and responding to legal and policy education issues at the federal level that affect local boards of education in Maryland, which is, increasingly important. And then also I had the opportunity to today attend a Strategic Planning Board Service Academy. I really found it to be a valuable experience. It's a MABE training that's offered, along with the other trainings. I personally benefited from it. It was a small group, and that made the conversation really valuable, and it really made me think differently about the strategic planning process and how I can just improve and so I look forward to continued discussions about that. So
Was that in person or virtual?
it was virtual. Yeah. That's all.
Thank you.
I'm going to echo what everybody else says. Welcome, Amen. And I also am going to repeat what I said at June 8th meeting. I think a year from now, we will be talking about you the same way we talked about Alden. You're going to leave your mark here. Speaking of Alden, I had the opportunity to talk to one of the kids that it's outside of the school system, but the graduated seniors that went across country. Emerson Cotton went to California, and it was life-altering for him.
Oh, yeah.
All the things he was able to do in a week was amazing, and he literally was glowing when he was telling me about it. So shout out to Alden for making that happen. Shout out for her to get Dr. Saunders to be on board with that. And again, I know from, you've been sitting in the audience for 2 years now. So it's not like you don't know what's going on here. And you haven't shied away already from your very first meeting for contributing and asking questions. And It's going to be a great year to have you on the board. All righty? All righty, folks. So notification of the next meeting. Next regularly scheduled monthly board meeting will be held on Monday, August 10th. The meeting will begin at 5:30 PM with the open session, followed by the board members immediately going into closed session. The open session will resume at 6:30 PM. Meeting will be located at the administrative building in the boardroom, 5608 Boundary Avenue, Rock Hall. I'm looking for a motion to adjourn,
I'll
please.
make the motion.
Mr. Rhodes made the motion. Is there a second?
I'll second.
Ms. McKenzie made the second. Is there any discussion? I call for the vote. All in favor?
Aye.
Mr. Lindsay?
Aye.
All righty, it's unanimous. We're out of